but oh, I am live. Oh my gosh. The absolute crazy man. I want to there's no viewers in the chat. It says I'm 12 seconds into a live stream and there's nobody here. Stray thought, could you pop over to YouTube? Pop over to the channel. I see we've got one viewer. I just need someone to confirm that this stream is actually happening and not happening. I have 3 viewers. Let's see. Let's try to confirm it myself. Well, I hear myself talking there. Am I still happening on D Live? Let's turn that off and go over. I'm very quiet on D Live, but I'm very loud on YouTube. Confirm. Oh my goodness. Well, folks, we are double streaming tonight, so you know what that means. If you want a super chat, you go throw some lemons over on the D Live. Boom, bada bam. Who needs 1,000 subscribers anyway, you know? So I've overcome the limitations. Both streams are lagging, but I'm watching Woes and Taylor, so it might be my end. Yeah, of course, there's a lot of things. It says I'm muted on D Live. Interesting. Weird. Well, okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing about the D Live platform. It allows for the super chats, right? It allows for the lemons. It allows for the Lino coin. So it doesn't really matter actually what is happening with the D Live. Even if D Live is technically muted, which unfortunate if it is, if I cannot hear myself on D Live, then that doesn't matter because you can hear me on YouTube. But you can always pop over to the D Live and you can throw some lemons, right? It's just an experience. Look, we got a lemon. There you go. Success, basking in glory, basking in the victory. So that's very cool. How do you support your intellectual lifestyle? One lemon at a time, baby. All right. So usually what I do is I talk for an hour. And the reason I do that is because I want to generate some chat. I want to generate something so that I can then respond to a whole bunch of things rather than one person makes a comment. I read the comment, I respond, and then I wait for another comment. So I usually just talk on my own for a little bit. And there were a couple things I wanted to talk about. First and foremost, probably, I just want to remark that Ivan the Heathen made a video. Whether he saw my stream or not is kind of irrelevant. I, of course, went through a previous video of his, which was basically about the idea that Bitcoin can provide a decentralized a stipend, or what is the term in stocks? Not a payout, but anyway, a dividend, right? So, you can have a blockchain technology which provides decentralized dividends, which are tied to artificial intelligence, which replaces the need to have a welfare state. And it was a libertarian argument. And I used to be very fond of anarcho-capitalist arguments. How you can have a non-state actor providing for defense, construction of roads, and all of these things are theoretically feasible in a way. And if you did convert everyone to libertarianism, I have no doubt that you could implement a lot of these things. The problem is moving from that theoretical of, well, if we just convert everyone to libertarianism, then we can have a libertarian paradise, to that concept of conversion, of changing people's minds from one thing to another thing. That is where I start to become cynical about human nature. And I start to look at history and I say, people don't just do what is excellent. People don't just do that which is logical or whatever. People have a tendency to be religious. And Ryan Falk, when he talks about the origin of state formation as being inherently religious, I think that if religion is on the side of the state, then you're not going to win against the state. Now, today we have a secular state, but I've argued that secularism is an even more aggressive version of religion than traditional Christianity, Judaism, Islam, any of those, Buddhism, Hinduism, doesn't matter. Secularism is a virulent form of a priestly spirit. And I just had a little talk over on the Joel Davis channel about that very subject, about the concept of transvaluation, morality, and the priestly spirit, which will probably go up sometime tonight or tomorrow. I don't know when he plans on throwing it up there. People were asking, when are you going to have that conversation? Well, we did have the conversation. And so that is a huge problem. That is a huge issue. I think libertarianism doesn't really confront, the concept of the herd morality. I mean, I guess Ayn Rand, in a way, has a sort of resentment toward the priest class, toward the bureaucratic class. She loves individualism. She wishes there were such a world in which only the excellent had power and all of these bureaucrats and priests were thrown out of power. But that world is not coming through libertarianism itself. You need a spiritual reorientation in order for that transvaluation to take place, literally to take the power away from the priest class and give it over to, the architects of industry, or whatever you want to call them, the titans of industry. In order to construct a libertarian paradise, you actually have to have a spiritual revolution, which would be somehow anti-democratic in nature. And then that gets you down a whole rabbit hole that merely talking about, okay, if we had a libertarian paradise, here is what we could do, versus if we, in order to get people to be libertarian, we have to basically deconstruct what Nietzsche calls slave morality, which I think is more properly called the priestly spirit, because I don't think slavery, I'm not viewing it from a bottom up of, the slaves resent the master, because I don't think that's actually how, when you look at the thrust of Nietzsche's arguments, he's not arguing that the herd resents the masters and therefore they create their own morality, which is against the master. No, it's the priest who creates the morality, so-called slave morality. So I think priestly is the whole concept of the slave, like the herd is irrelevant. The herd is instrumental in this, instrumental not in the case of being vital or essential, but instrumental in the sense of being a secondary component, not primary to who originates this morality. So, I think it's a little bit deeper. Like I feel like we can argue in the same way that you can have Catholic versus Orthodox argument all day, essence, energy, distinctions of God, and you can talk about biblical exegesis and Peter, the rock of the church, and James, and you can get into dogma. I feel like the same mentality is happening when we talk about, a libertarian society could provide for defense in this way. We could have the police, we could build the roads. Here's how we could have a retirement plan. Here's how we could deal with artificial intelligence without having something like UBI. So when you get into that, it feels like we're getting into exegesis and dogma, and we're not really understanding or confronting the fact that, although he did that already, to Ivan's credit, he did this whole series on nominalism as the theological origins of leftism. So he did try to confront it in this deeper way. And then he makes this newest video. And in this newest video, he sort of acknowledges that perhaps talking about, the way in which libertarianism can, even if he is a true diehard libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, but even talking about the ways in which libertarianism could be implemented is not really addressing this fundamental problems of really, which I think are spiritual problems, they're sociological problems, they are very deep problems that are rooted in our psychology, that are ancient in orientation. I think even just talking about the nominalist revolution for me, at the time when he said that, it was kind of a new concept to me. This is a year or two ago. And I was like, that's interesting. I've heard of that before. I'll go into this. But then you take it back to a deeper sense. You take it to, Nietzsche, in a way, you could call him a nominalist. But in a sense, we can see the ways in which Nietzsche's concept of morality really does predate, in a sense, the priestly instantiation and the schizophrenic religious mindset of early urbanites and agriculturalists. So to even stop at the nominalist revolution and say, okay, if we go back to the 11th century, the 12th century, finally we figured out where this all came from. And if we just attack that or we understand that, then everything else can unravel from there. No, it's way deeper than that. It's prehistorical. We don't even have writings which detail these transition forms between different moralities. We have to sort of reconstruct them philology, such a hard word. But anyway, philology through the reconstruction of etymology and through archaeology, really, we can reconstruct what were people like in prehistoric times, and we can speculate. That's really all we can do. You're never going to have... that's just a problem of history in general. Even when we do have a written historical record, it is always a model of something that happened. It is never actually, we can never really relive the experience of what it was like to go through that process. But I thought it was an excellent video by Ivan for two reasons. First of all, and the reason I pushed him to make videos, even though he doesn't want to anymore, is because he's an eloquent speaker. He doesn't and ah. I mean, this guy is first rate, and he says it himself. If he practiced more, he could become even better. And so he's already starting at a very high level of someone who I recognize a talent there of someone who can speak well. People like to listen to him. He has a strong intellect, as much as I might disagree about libertarianism or whatever, his focus or his metaphysics or whatever. I understand that he has an intellect, and I respect that. And so I encourage, whatever my differences are, I encourage him to engage, because I just like to see excellence on the stage. I like to see their performance of excellence. Even if I disagree with somebody, I can appreciate. It's almost like a Christopher Hitchens, because I can disagree with Christopher Hitchens on almost everything. But ultimately, you still like to watch him, or at least I used to when I was not so ideologically biased against him. I used to like to watch him just because he's such a good speaker and he has such good rhetoric. So there's that appreciation. And then there's the pathos of what's happening. He, as opposed to his former video, the one in which, I listened to, I got through about 15 minutes of it and then stopped. This one is not like, oh, let's discuss policy and let's discuss technicalities. This one is about pathos, and his emotion comes through, his frustration comes through, and he's using swears and he's using vulgar language and he's making certain points, and he draws you in. So it's not just rhetorical, it's not just flowery language, and he's obviously intelligent and he has a good vocabulary. It's not just that, but he's using pathos, and you show that in a sense he cares, and he is exhausted, and you can feel the emotion coming through the screen. And so the ability for a person to be both emotional and at the same time eloquent is a very powerful talent. So it surprises me when I hear him, because I don't know him personally. I don't know a whole lot about him. I've really only interacted with him once or twice or something when I was doing a podcast like a year ago. And it was like a 3-person podcast. And so he was one of the people. And I think I talked to him for maybe 20 minutes afterward or something. I don't know the guy. But apparently he wants to help grow these blockchain technologies, because in his words, social dynamics, wax and wane, back and forth. You have elite, which forms, which creates an ideology. It is used to defending its ideology, and then it grows soft and weak. And the internet accelerates this process by which an ideology becomes cringe, in his words. And therefore, we're just cycling even faster and faster through this process to no end, to no progress. Nothing is really happening. First, Bolshevism is popular, and then capitalism is popular, and then neoliberalism is popular, and then it sort of explodes, and then you have the neo-reactionaries, and then you have the post-liberalists, and you have all these fashions, he calls them. These are merely fashions. They don't do anything. They don't change anything. They merely critique the current system, point out the ways in which it is cringe, in which it is faulty, in which it is flawed, in which it is stupid, in which it is uncool. It points those things out. It gains momentary glory for itself, and then it dissipates, disappears, and fades into nothing. So he's critiquing this, and this is something I've recognized, but he puts it in a really good presentation. It's a valuable video to watch. And he says at the end of it, well, I know something which is less cyclical, and that is technology. If I can help develop blockchain technology, I can fundamentally change the social ecology in which we exist, and I can grant power to those forces which are not elites. I can help distribute and decentralize power and aid dissidents of all kinds by advancing this blockchain technology. Now, in what manner he's going to do that, I don't know. Is he going to be a programmer? Is he going to help fund it? Is he going to help research? What exactly function he's performing? Kind of surprises me that you have someone. Of course, he is sort of a mathematically, logically brained person. You can tell that. But at the same time, the fact that he's a good speaker, good presenter, and he might also be a computer programmer. I don't know how he intends to help blockchain develop, but the hint or the intimation there implicitly that he is both a good computer programmer and a good speaker. And so that's kind of rare. I know a lot of computer programmers who stutter and stumble, and they're not very social, and they're not very good at speaking and making presentations. This is a guy who he sort of has the best of both worlds. He has a well-rounded kind of liberal in the sense that Goethe was liberal, that liberal meaning like the liberal arts. You've got your rhetoric, you've got your math, you've got your science, you've got your astronomy, and all the different things that made up the classic liberal arts. It presents a very powerful image of an individual, with charisma, but also not just pure charisma, but there's also a logic to it, and it's girded and anchored in this empirical process. So I thought it was a good video. Now, I respect his choice. If he doesn't want to make videos, if he simply wants to go back to commenting on videos as I see him do, then, that's his right. That's his choice. And that's fine. And I'll respect that. But it's interesting. It's interesting to see and look at a person like that. And I sympathize with a lot of the frustrations that he expresses on like a personal human level, the things that he talks about. It is, I've had the same thing happen to me at certain points. People said, you should produce this kind of content, or at times when I wasn't producing much, you should produce more content. You should talk about this. You should research this. You should do this. It's like, why don't you do something? Maybe I don't want to. Maybe I have other things to do. So I certainly sympathize with him, but maybe he didn't. Maybe some of and it's fine, but maybe his frustration is somewhat in part because I was making demands on him. So maybe something ironical there, but I wish him the best, and I think he's an interesting person. So to kind of transition from that into the discussion I just had, which was about this concept of transvaluation, that transvaluation gave us priestly morality. And priestly morality is a technology that we use essentially to create distance between our active instincts and those laws of sociality which must exist if we are to have urbanism. Essentially, if we're to be larger than a tribal unit, then we need to start having a priestly structure which mediates our actions. We cannot simply act as we want to act. We have to be mediated through a priestly bureaucracy, which first, I believe, instantiates itself through schizophrenia. Now, by what mechanism that comes about, I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure there's all kinds of psychological and really archaeo-psychological literature, because you're speculating on the psychology of prehistorical peoples. How did that come about? Maybe in the genetic record and in terms of what genes contribute to schizophrenia. There has been some studies which imply that Neanderthal DNA is linked with schizophrenia, which is interesting. I guess I don't know enough about it to draw conclusions from that strictly. But it's an interesting subject. And then to go forward and to ask, okay, well, we're in this priestly bureaucracy, which essentially is trying to achieve objective truth by destroying all biases. So the goal of the priestly pursuit for truth is we have to create an eyeball without direction. And that is trying to become like God. We define God as omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, seeing everything at all times, above chronology. And so God has no biases. God is not anchored to any particular part of the world. God is actually prior to the world. And so if that is the case and we're trying to become like God, then in that process, we de-anchor ourselves. And so really more than nominalism, I would say. I would say this is the spiritual foundation of our present predicament, wherein at the priestly drive to remove biases from our perception, we attack the nationality, gender, race, culture, any kind of bias, any kind of perspective, any kind of identity which is not universal in scope has to be attacked. Now, people can point out, well, certain people, their identity is encouraged. Certain people have organizations that lobby on behalf of their identity, and those are not criticized. So clearly, there's a double standard. But I think on a deeper level, the reason why some people's identities are attacked and some people's are not is because there is a recognition of identities with respect to power, even if it's a false recognition or misconstrued or whatever. But the identities which are deconstructed first and foremost are those which are said to be most powerful. So there is a logic behind these double standards. When we attack certain identities and not others, we attack those identities which we perceive to be most powerful. Foucault is looking at structures of power. So he's trying to ask the question, in what way are our ideas biased by our identities and cultures? And he doesn't look at it, okay, what's the most oppressed culture? How does that influence us? No, he always looks at what is the most powerful culture? What's the most powerful identity? And so it's all about looking at from a top-down perspective. First, you deconstruct the most powerful ideologies. And then once you do that, you kind of move down the chain to the less and less powerful, to the point where you're criticizing toxic gamer culture, which is like, dude, gamers are the most, passive, impotent people in society. Yet you're trying to exhaust the list of power dynamics and perspectives and endlessly criticize them, to the point where after everything has been deconstructed, finally we will achieve objective truth, because we will no longer have these anchors which are binding us to the earth and blinding us to the universality of things. So obviously the effect of all of this, as I've said, is to attack identity. And the effect of attacking identity and de-anchoring ourselves from our identities is we become apathetic, depressed, suicidal. We don't want to get out of bed in the morning. We become dysfunctional. We become hedonistic, since we no longer have anchors in our identity, in our family, in our history. Now we have to anchor ourselves in pure stimulation and pure stimulus. Nietzsche refers to the ecstasy of affect. And what he means by affect is essentially emotion. That it's not simply about pursuing happiness. It's about pursuing emotion for its own sake. That is, we watch a horror movie to scare ourselves, to make ourselves feel alive, to anchor ourselves in reality. We engage with politics to make ourselves angry. We engage in so many sexual fetishes, humiliation, cuckoldry, to have this strong feeling of shame and guilt overwhelm us, to give us some kind of sense of that we really exist, that we really are here, because we've lost all of the other anchoring points in the cultural, sociological, ecological fabric around us. So since we've been divorced from these sort of top-down priestly constructions, you can say in the way the nation state is a priestly construction, we've lost that old religion, that old archaic religion, that tradition. We've lost that, and therefore we have to rely upon our pure sensuality, our pure emotionality, in order to keep living, essentially. If you divorce us from that, then there's nothing left. I mean, that's basically the only thing holding us back, is this pure sensuality, the overconsumption of food, the overconsumption of pornography, addictions of every kind, whether they be gambling or otherwise. So what are we to do about this? There are basically two options. You can either go forward with technology and you can try to create, and whenever I talk about artificial intelligence, I guess I get pushed back because there's so many philosophers who don't like the idea of artificial intelligence. And they say, well, here's my philosophical treatise that's unreadable on how artificial intelligence is actually impossible. I don't really care. So instead of talking about that, and sometimes I'll slip up and use that term, but maybe to just avoid that argument entirely, we'll just talk about genetic technology, We'll take something we already know that has a consciousness, humanity. We'll simply edit the genes in one way or another so as to produce a group of people or many groups of people which are so excellent, so intelligent, so charismatic, so in self control. We can literally edit our instincts. We can change our relation to sex and food and entertainment. We can change the way that the dopamine pathways work in the brain. We can change the biochemistry of the human so that they are inborn with perfect self-control. You don't need to teach them through religious texts. You don't need to put them through a monastery and bring them into the priesthood. No, they are born with self-control. This is something which is possible theoretically from my perspective, and therefore it would present an opportunity for us to throw off the external bureaucracy of morality, which allows us to mediate all of our social interactions to keep society together. And we could simply go back to being as we are, being authentic to ourselves. That is one solution. The other solution is you kind of turn back the clock and go backwards, and you say, we're going to bring back religion. We're going to bring back these identities that we've lost. And this is the reactionary position, right? We've lost our identities because of the priestly quest for objectivity. So now we're going to turn back the clock. We're going to sort of say, no, we're not looking for objective truth. We're going to put that quest to the side. If you want to know what the truth is, read the Bible. If you want to know the truth, read the Quran, read the Torah, read the Vedas, read Pythagoras. We have a series of books here that you can read, and there's no need to go off the reservation and just engage with the quest for pure truth in itself. However, if we understand Nietzsche, and we agree with Nietzsche to some degree, then this leads us to the opinion that there is no sense in which we can contain the priestly given our current ecology as well as technology. There's no way that we can truly trap in Pandora's box what has been unleashed. So this priestly spirit of deconstruction has been unleashed. There is no putting it back in the box. We cannot recreate or refashion a religion to contain this fanatical search for truth, which strives to destroy all identity. Heidegger recognized this, I think. He said that he talked about it in terms of being authentic to your time and place. He talked about, being true to yourself, and this idea of objective morality as leading to a precondition. The objective search for truth is actually a precondition for technology. So it's not technology which, in the originary sense, is created by accident and then destroys us. It's the drive for objective truth which creates technology as a secondary effect, which also has a compounding effect of breaking down identities in a roundabout way. But we could have a Bible of technology. We could have manuscript upon manuscript describing how to create technology and still have a very hyper-religious society. I believe this is how Neanderthal society was structured. This is speculation, but I believe that Neanderthals did not learn how to make tools in a creative process. But the tool-making process for Neanderthals was a kind of ritualistic process. That is to say, when they made tools, it was not a creative, objective search for the perfect Platonic tool, but it was sort of a ritual that they went through that was passed down, maybe genetically or maybe it was taught mimetically. But either way, it is we see this in these archaeological sites, that the tools that the spearheads, the arrowheads that they make, or whatever they are, the flint constructions, they're extremely similar to each other in such a way as, you're looking at that, and archaeologists speculate that this wasn't something that was accidentally created, but this is something that was like ossified as this is how you make this tool. And there was almost a religious worship of the shape, which we call autism, right? There's a worship of the shape itself. It's not some kind of logical process that says, well, if I angle it right, it kind of looks better this way. Maybe it'll be sharper. Maybe it's going to be a better tool. No, once that technology arrived in some way, one way or another, the Neanderthals then decided this is the holy spear point. This is the holy flint, and it has to be made this way every single time. And so in that, if you can get to a point theoretically where you can have technology but you don't need to have the technicism. That is, you don't need to have the objective search for truth that led to technology. In a way, we're sort of talking about a cargo cult here. So we can still have technology, and we could theoretically reel back in or contain the drive for objective truth, which has led to this deconstruction of identity. Theoretically, we can make that argument. Heidegger says that in order for this to happen, only a God could save us. So he prescribes it as something that should happen, but he says, I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't have a plan for you. It's got to be somehow a deus ex machina. He sort of laid out the theory, but going from point A, which is the reality we're in, to point B, which is actually bringing about this theory, has no clue how that's going to happen. And I'm going to suggest that that's because it's not really going to happen. He was a smart guy, and he couldn't come up with a way to get from A to B, because there is no way from A to B. There is no way to turn back the clock. There is no way to recontain this spirit. So we just have to move forward using technology, which is a result of this spirit, to somehow change humanity or go beyond humanity, building off the consciousness we already have. And we need to push through this moment and get to a place where we can reconfigure our instincts so we're no longer at war with our instincts. Imagine you're a gene-edited human being. You have no desire for laziness. You have no desire for, lustful activity besides pure procreation. Imagine, it's not that you don't have a will to live or a will to create, but you're no longer concerned. I mean, imagine someone, you could put porn in front of them and they would say, this is weird. What is this? This is not entertaining at all. That someone who, for them, their creative energies would be directed purely toward whatever it would be, solving problems or navigating a space. I'm trying to talk about something that's very abstract, but how to be a genius. Imagine if all your creative energies were directed toward how to be a genius rather than how to play Minecraft. Imagine if we could reconstruct our instincts, our dopamine receptors, these neural pathways on a genetic basis, so that we were immune to video games, so that we would recognize video games as something illusory. We would recognize them as something which is a waste of time. And we would take all that creative problem-solving energy and we would redirect it toward the flourishing of life itself. Not a distraction from life, not a side quest, but the main quest, life itself, of creating whatever that is, whatever that quest may be. I prefer to think of beauty. The opponents of artificial intelligence in general, of course, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about gene editing, but still, it's worthy to bring in this kind of insectoid theory that's sometimes projected onto the Chinese. And it's not me saying that, but some people say that, where they'll say gene editing is going to lead to a condition, it's very similar to the gray goo, where humanity will be optimized. And through this optimization, we're going to lose our humanity. We're going to lose our depth. We're going to lose that which makes us special, that which makes us spiritual. We're simply going to be very good at being civilized, but there's not going to be any inner struggle, the way that Dostoevsky or various theologians and Christians and spiritualists refer to this inner struggle, which gives the human being its spiritual depth. The technology, if it can resolve these problems of the instinct and contradiction to the will to life that necessitates the priest coming into being, if technology can solve this problem, then the opponents of this would say, well, this is going to destroy what it means to be human. This is going to destroy our spirituality. And so therefore, that we cannot do that. We have to go back. We have to develop a new religious framework which can contain the destruction of identities. And that's going to be, we have to be Christians again, or we have to be Platonists again, or we have to be Muslims, or we have to go back to some religion which is going to protect and anchor our psychology. And then you have people who say, they probably wouldn't object to the gene editing thing at some point, but you have people for whom this process by which people are divested from their identities and driven to insanity and sensuous hedonism, for whom that's not really a problem. And I think you can see people like Jeffrey Epstein as people who are pursuing this sensuous pleasure who don't really care if the majority of humanity is having some kind of identity crisis. Their resolution is in a pure pursuit of power and sensuality. So, I mean, if any of this makes sense, maybe we'll check in, see if I am still being heard here. Let's scroll up. Okay, let's see if people are going on. Well, what does it say? Does it tell me how many people are watching the DLive? I don't think people would prefer the DLive over the YouTube. It says there is one. Yeah, I can hear myself on the DLive, so it is working. But I don't think people are going to prefer that over the YouTube. Let's see. Ivan Heathen's new video is good. I agree. I'm suspicious of anything that involves unanimity. Yeah, if everyone agrees, it suggests a kind of a lack of critical thinking, a lack of self-criticism. Technology and the system are one. Spaces of liberation are at best a bargain, but they always converge into a society of control. Is that Deleuze? Is Deleuze the guy who talks about societies of control? Hit those subs. Is it bad to say? I have a little bit of dried skin on my lips. I'm trying to hacksaw it off with my front teeth. I mean, it's a dead piece of skin. It's not like I'm eating myself. Yes. Okay, there we go. I hope you all enjoyed that. Isn't the society of control still preferable to the society of discipline? The priest is an instrument of the herd. False, not true. It is more difficult to escape the society of control. Onion. I couldn't imagine doing a long form stream with uninterrupted smooth talk. Yeah, how does he do it? How does this nerd talk for so long? Dunno. I am a special breed. Onion fuel. Ken is cool. We got to continue that rhyme. Everyone must now rhyme in the chat. If your chat doesn't rhyme with the previous chat, we got problems. Can you describe Plotinian Deleuzianism? No, I can't. I can't describe that. You know, there is the way I tried to end that discussion, as I said. So essentially what you're saying is we have to get to a praxis of action. And the way you're prescribing we do that is we read the body of work of Deleuze, which is like the most convoluted work of philosophy that I know of or could conceive of. So it's like, are you suggesting that by over-intellectualizing, we will collapse our intellectualism, that we will intellectualize our way into an anti-intellectualism back to action or something like that? It's going to be like a black hole which collapses space-time is the analogy I use. So, that sort of thing obviously sounds paradoxical. It obviously sounds nonsensical when on the one hand you're saying we should take DMT and go get high, but on your stream you're not doing that. You're actually referencing like this corpus and this body of work. Let's talk about what Nietzsche had to say. Let's talk about what Deleuze. Let's reference Heidegger. So it is and within that stream, you'll see there's not a rejection of the priestly outright, but it's this conception of we're going to out-priest the priestly. We're going to be so priestly that we're going to get back into the shamanic or something like this. So there is something like counterintuitive and illogical about it. You know, that what kind of probably the best argument for that line of thinking would be like the transvaluation that first came, which removed us from natural morality and gave us a priestly morality. That, in a sense, was nonsensical. It was the will to life reflected against itself. You know, it was life fighting itself, which is sort of contradictory and illogical. So the fact that the idea that this could happen again, that through intellectualizing through Deleuze, we can somehow escape intellectualism and get back to action itself, seems not to be apparent. Like, I don't see it happening. Like, I don't see Deleuzian men of action taking action. I hear them making podcasts, but I don't see the action. But the action is supposed to be there. And Joel said to me, he said, "We'll know them by their fruits." So I'm like, I am waiting. I am waiting for some action to come along. But the way I see it, to kind of give you my own perspective on it, is that there needs to be an impetus to philosophy. There needs to be like an I've heard about philosophy for a long time. I've known about philosophy. I've never had a reason to read the philosophers, to engage with it. And so by engaging with this like contradictory, nonsensical, charismatic focus, the juicy instrumentality of language, we called it, by engaging with that, it gives me a reason to read the philosophers. And if I decide at the end of the day that that reason, whether it was sociality, charisma, whatever reason if I decide that was false, if I decide, as Ivan says, that it was merely a fashion, if I decide that it's illogical, if I decide that it's nonsensical, if I decide that it's wrong, well, so what? If it is impelling me to the action of reading the philosophers, and I've gained some knowledge, and now when someone talks about Nietzsche, I can say, oh, well, I know about Nietzsche. I'm informed. I'm not ignorant. Whereas before I had to say, Nietzsche, I think he inspired some spree shooters and social Darwinists and people who are anti-empathy. And I don't like Nietzsche for that reason. I think empathy is necessary. I think the mothering aspect is necessary for humanity. And for most mammals, we need to care for the weak and the helpless and the sick. Otherwise, your society is going to collapse. So that's really, that was my picture of Nietzsche. And so that was really all I could say. I couldn't engage with philosophy directly. I could just say, well, people who like Nietzsche tend to be antisocial freaks who are arrogant and think too highly of themselves. But now I have a reason to actually engage with the ideas. And whether they're true or false or whatever they are, I at least can explain them to you. I can say, here's what transvaluation is. So I've learned something. When you're in academia, when you're in a school, you're paying thousands of dollars to earn a philosophy degree. So you kind of have a reason to, get good grades in your courses. And so that's your impetus to philosophy. If you're within a rabbinical structure or a priestly structure, there are cases that you don't read your Torah, you don't read your Bible. The archbishop comes and he starts whipping you or disciplining you, like you're forced to go through it. So the impetus to philosophy oftentimes is not some kind of pure, innocent pursuit of truth. Often there's like an ulterior motive. I want to get good grades. I want a philosophy degree to be cool. I want, the rector or the teacher or the rabbi or the archbishop is going to punish me if I don't do my philosophical work. So working through this canon, which I view as a priestly process, there has to be some kind of emotional impulse. Like I find this in myself. I'm not able to do something. I don't have this perfect self-control where I could rationally say, like, I should read philosophy, therefore I shall. Like, just because I know something is good for me doesn't mean I'm going to do it. So by having this weird, crazy, paradoxical, I'm like I hear people who are more educated than me, more intelligent than me, talk about these people that they've read and reference them and say, well, if only you had read Deleuze, then you would understand how everything I'm saying is making sense. And they're like, well, how am I going to get to the point where I can at least actually read that and make sense of that? I have to have some kind of emotional structure, which is pushing me toward that, which is kind of independent from the thing itself. Like Nietzsche is not going to rise up from the grave and start screaming his philosophy at me. I mean, most of the reason we listen to people and we pay attention to what people say is not because of the words they're speaking. In fact, that's impossible. There's no way that you could, because in order to listen to in order to justify after the fact to say, I listened to him because he has good things to say. Well, how did you know he had good things to say? I could, for the next 45 minutes, I could just do some I could just do that for 45 minutes and you would say, hey man, I didn't come here for like scat music. I didn't come here for a little bit of jazzy scatting. I came here to listen to your good ideas. So you cannot say, I mean, you can say, well, I've heard him say good things in the past, and therefore he's probably going to say interesting things in the future. But ultimately, like, you can't deterministically say, if you've never heard someone speak before, you can't deterministically say they're going to say good things, they're going to say true things or smart things. You have to rely upon your prejudice of that person, which has to do with, what do they look like? Who are they connected to? Do they have a college degree? Do they have a lot of subscribers? We are using basically social cues in order to inform us of who should we direct our attention toward. And if I live in a social vacuum where Nietzsche is just some dead guy, why should I bother to read him? But if instead I'm in a group of smart people, and all those smart people are saying you're stupid and you're dumb if you haven't read Nietzsche, all of a sudden there's this social status signal attached to that. I mean, on a really basic childish level, a child wants to look good in front of their own friends. They want to be cool, and so they adapt to the social mechanisms that are imposed. It's cool to be good at sports, so I practice sports. It's good to know philosophy, so I practice philosophy. You have to be integrated into some kind of social structure if you want to do that. Again, it could be a huge waste of time. Maybe I was correct before I ever started studying philosophy to just write it off as a waste of time and not read it. But I think this is the context. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of people doing that. I mean, that is, in effect, let me give you another meta narrative. If you have two groups of people, and I started talking about this with Star Wars, right, in the podcast that's coming out. We hate the new trilogy in Star Wars because Kylo Ren is pathetic and nauseating and disgusting. He cries like a baby, snot dribbles down his face. He's pathetic. And so the screenwriters say, oh, well, the audience will cheer for the good guys because the bad guy is so disgusting. No, that's not what's happening. If you look at the original trilogy, Darth Vader is cool. And so is Luke, and so is Han, and Leia. She's even cool in her own feminist way. So everyone is cool, and they're fighting each other. And yeah, there's a good and evil, but they're both cool. They're both aesthetic. So the idea of this intense moralization that now happens with Kylo Ren, where you hate him not because he's a cool, evil villain, but you hate him because he's kind of disgusting, nauseating. You wish like he'd leave the screen. Like, you don't want to watch him. At least this is my personal opinion. Maybe there are a bunch of 30-year-old man children who they really identify with Kylo. Like, it's like that feel when mom took away my Xbox. Like, maybe that's going on. I can't get myself in that headspace right now. Maybe if Susan takes away my YouTube channel, I'll start like crying like Kylo Ren and start like smashing holes in the walls and acting like a child. But other than that, we can see that, I mean, from my perspective, if the purpose here is to direct people, their attention toward a plot, that is to direct people toward being invested in a universe, whether it's Star Wars or whether it's philosophy, you have to have a sense of, aesthetics where people can oppose each other, people can fight, people can even hate each other or whatever. Luke maybe hates the Emperor in Star Wars or whatever. There can be real disagreements there. But it cannot be cringe. It cannot be this moralization where, you've got Kylo Ren and he's like this sniveling brat. And it's like, I don't want to watch that. That's not a heroism is not about like, there's a child who's like screaming and upset, but he has like the strength of a giant. And then the hero has to come deal with that guy. That's not exciting. That's not interesting. It's interesting when you have Darth Vader and he's like cool and he takes care of business himself. He doesn't have people do things for him. No, he's in the thick of the battle. He doesn't kill Obi-Wan. He doesn't tell his stormtroopers, go shoot at Obi-Wan from 3 different angles at the same time so he can't defend himself with his lightsaber. He says, no, leave him to me. I'll fight him alone. So there is like this aesthetic coolness. There's almost a mutual respect. You can see this with the samurai. Like, you can have an anime, Naruto, and there's, I'm trying to think, I don't remember any of the names anymore, but in the first like season of Naruto is fighting this enemy who has all these ice shields. If you know Naruto, you know what I'm talking about. And he doesn't hate the guy. And in fact, the guy or girl, I forget the gender, It's all ambiguous in anime. But anyway, I mean, Naruto is voiced by a woman in the American dub. So anyway, they are fighting, and the enemy kind of reveals. I think it's a woman. She reveals her reason for protecting this bad guy, this villain, because this villain showed empathy, and it's like a humanizing element. And so the villains become cool, and so you don't want the hero, and that you're not interested in the hero and the villain fighting because one is like evil and demonic and the other one is good and holy and pure, but they are both cool in their own way, and so you're drawn into this conflict. So I'm not suggesting that everybody get along and everyone agree. Like, I have disagreements with people, I have questions, I have skepticism. I'm not just trying to reinforce anyone's dogma here, or just say, yeah, just listen to this guy, he has all the answers. But what I'm saying is that, in my opinion, the thing that seems to drive me most toward philosophy is when I have a social reason for doing so. Of like, I want to be cool like that guy, he seems to know a lot, so therefore I also want to read the corpus, I want to do the work so that I can become cool like him. So they're like these social reasons. And then there's an oppositional reason of, I want to learn philosophy so that I can BTFO my enemies and appear smarter than them. So this is not like an authentic drive for truth, right? This is, but I don't think it ever is to begin necessarily. In the way that Nietzsche looks at the drive for truth and the resentments therein, and the way that the priest will point to God and say, well, God said this is correct, when really the priest is saying, no, I want this, I said this. And you can see that. You can see megalomaniacal people, very very controlling people, who will use religion as a means to obscure their own need for control. These are people who, they need everything to be exactly the way they want it to be. These are people who must have, it's kind of autistic. It's kind of like, everything needs to be exactly my way. There can never be any deviation. There can be never any disagreement. This is the way it has to be. Anyone who disagrees with me, where do they go? They go to hell, right? So, but it's not me saying it, it's God saying that. You see Pastor Anderson do this. He is this, like, he whips himself up and he says, oh, I'm just a humble servant of God. But you see it in his attitude and his presentation. It's not him. He's saying, oh, God, it wants you to go to hell. God is sending you to hell. It's not me. But you know that he wants them to go to hell as well. So, and I think even he would recognize that, and he's probably said before that, like, the objective is, the priest is to bring himself into coherence with God's will, to make his will and God's will simultaneous, so that, yeah, I really do want you to go to hell just as God wants you to go to hell. I hate who God hates. I love who God loves. So there is a recognition there. It's not like the priest is completely ignorant of what's going on. But there are people who are not as, I think the reason why people like Pastor Anderson is because he's so forthright and honest. He's so brutal and just out there. He's not sophisticated. He denies evolution. He denies dinosaurs and all of these things. But he's brutally honest. And so whatever he lacks in terms of, science denial or whatever, it's like you can appreciate someone who's just giving it to you straight, not sugarcoating it. Whereas then you have these people who all they do is talk about love and tolerance, love and tolerance, love and tolerance. And then, but underneath, they're the most hateful people on the face of the planet. The people who all they talk about is love and tolerance. They are the most resentful, hateful people. They want to see you die, and they think it's funny. These people who just talk about love and tolerance. So there are these levels of priestly psychology that are important to recognize. Not that I don't think we shouldn't read books, or that we shouldn't have academia, or that I've defended these things. I think these things are good. And frankly, I don't agree with the idea that, if we just take DMT in the forest, like, that's like the best, that is the best thing we could possibly do. That's like way better than being a nerd who reads books. Like, take DMT, do crimes, deal drugs, like, do these things. I'm going to have to disagree there. I'm going to have to agree to disagree there. But I guess I would rather engage and have a reason to engage. And I would bring it back to the Star Wars, but I've gone too far off on this tangent. Let's see. Cringe needs a specific definition. Yeah, for that for that video. It was not very specific, but you could get the pathos of what he was saying. It was kind of a contrast between he's using this specific vocabulary and then switching over to cringe, which is very ambiguous, very like, what is the exact definition? Well, we don't know. It's kind of like, what is the spirit of Keck in 2015 or 2016? Like, what does it actually represent? Well, no one really knows. It's kind of mysterious. What is cringe? It's like not cool. It's the opposite of cool, I suppose. And what does it mean to be cool? Well, that's a weird question. That's a complicated question. The stream is cringe, true. Can anyone fill me in on the person Kenneth's talking about? Ivan the Heathen video. Thank you. Can you critique fashion for its transience? You can critique fashion for its transience, but I feel like it has similarities to an evolutionary or adaptive process by which groups can learn through changing after encountering difficulty. Yeah, I mean, that's the fundamental thing where Ivan sees fashion and he sees, oh, this is just doing the same thing over and over again, just with different forms, you know. This season you're going to wear black, and this season you're going to wear blue, and now, you know, we're wearing, you know, yoga pants, and now the yoga pants are like slightly different. They got patterns, and now it's not yoga pants, it's yoga shorts. You know, he sees this and he's disgusted by it because he says nothing fundamentally is changing. It's just superficial outward appearances. And I'm sympathetic to that. And I felt that at times. So I think I agree with Fourth Density on some level that you do have to engage with fashion. You do have to engage with rhetoric. You do have to engage with presentation and coolness. And you have to engage with the juicy instrumentality of language. Because otherwise, no one is going to even bother to investigate the truth or philosophy. I mean, that's at least the way I feel. I mean, maybe some people think that, maybe some people really do. They're just like, I just like to read Plato because I just like Plato. I'm just not one of those people. So in order for me to break into that, I need to kind of have like some fuel. I need the metaphor of gasoline versus the car. Truth, philosophy, objectivity, logic, reason, science. That's the car. You need gas in the car to go somewhere. Otherwise, the car is just going to sit there. And that's been my relation to philosophy for a very long time, is like, I have this car, these books out there I could order on Amazon. I could read PDFs, but I'm not doing that because I don't have the gas. I don't have the emotional impetus to do so, even though I know it's true, right, good, I should do it, whatever. I'm not doing that. I'm doing other things that are maybe less important. And so how do we synthesize gasoline in the laboratory and get it into the car? How do we obtain that gasoline? How do we obtain motivation? I mean, this is a problem anyone has to deal with in life. If you know you're supposed to do your homework, but you procrastinate, how do you overcome that? I mean, this is just something I think everybody has to deal with. There are some super productive people who do not procrastinate or procrastinate less than others. So, you know, there are some people who would say, oh man, just do the right thing. Just do the right thing. Yeah, for most people, it's not that simple. So there needs to be gasoline. Maybe technology is analogous to heat exchange. In physics, it's an era of time. Yeah, I'm not so familiar with all that. The online political dynamics seem fleeting now, but eventually spiritual destinies will cause sectarianism realization into the IRL. You can see that happening. It fits into Spangler's view. I don't know if that's true. I think we're going to have to go through a lot more cycles of fashionability. I think politics is going to get more superficial before it gets more real. And I think we're seeing that with impeachment. The theater of politics will only ramp up and just become more and more ridiculous. I mean, it's probably not an exaggeration to say someday Milo is going to be doing a comedy routine. And then what's his name? John Leibowitz or John Stewart, I think is his stage name. You know, John Stewart will go into Congress and he'll do a comedy act or whatever. You know, it's not, we're getting to that point where the superficiality is only increasing. The idea that somehow we're going to come into the IRL aspect of it. Again, I don't think there's going to be any kind of a conflict because of plastic and soy and canola oil and all the rest of the synthetic vegetable oils. But synthetic oils, plastics, all this synthetic stuff is an attack upon our human psychology, our ability of agency. Like biochemistry is changing our spiritual orientation. People are not willing to fight. People are not willing to engage in conflict. People are not willing to risk their lives anymore. So the idea that something, oh, it's going to get real, I don't think it's going to get real. I think, you know, Virginia is a farce. Oh, we're going to have gun control, but then we're going to have sanctuary cities, and then we're going to have militias. It's a huge farce. We've had this before. We've gone through this before. If you look at post-war America, 1945 to the present day, all of these things have happened before, all the same rhetoric. And actually, people did stuff before. There were bombings. There have been bombings in American history. There have been militias in American history. There have been battles fought against the federal government with guns. It all happened before. But you see, over time, it decreases and decreases and decreases, not because the federal government becomes less abusive towards certain groups, but it's because those groups become more and more effeminate, more and more intellectual, more and more canola-ized, the canola boys, the plastic boys. If you think it's just soy, you got another thing coming. This is a fundamental thing people refuse to recognize. The discourse is not arbitrary. Gamers destroyed. Fetishization of continental philosophy and power analysis feels like both the final stage of a period of critique and a ground zero for a new one of creativity. Yeah, that's certainly an argument that Joel would be accepting or sympathetic to. I'm not so certain about it, but I'm at least interested in engaging to see where because with these things, I had to work through libertarianism. I didn't just say, oh, libertarianism, that's dumb. Ron Paul, he lost the election. Therefore, I will never bother with that. No, I had to work through it. I didn't read Ayn Rand, but I listened to a lot of videos, okay? I listened to a lot of videos. I learned economics before anyone had ever talked to me about economics. I learned it online. I really went through it. I really assiduously processed it. I thought it was important because I liked the people involved. I want to be like them. I want to write the anarcho-capitalist manifesto. I want to be the Marx, but of the anarcho-capitalists, the anti-statist manifesto. I mean, this is the kind of mind frame I was emotionally invested in it as a social group, which was ephemeral. I suppose there's a term where it's like a one-sided emotional relationship. I wasn't engaging with these people. I listened to them. They're my virtual friends. And so I had to go through that libertarian stage to actually be able to say, oh, well, I understand it thoroughly enough now that I can put it to the side and move on to bigger and better things. I couldn't just dismiss it and say, it's stupid for some superficial reason. I actually had to work through it. So if I disagree with something, I still feel like I have to work through it in some way. It is difficult to overstate how unhuman this system is. People are begging in the most pathological ways for the return of Thanatos. Yeah, there's truth to that. He's been reading the NLP book, Yuck. I actually haven't. I've gotten through a couple of pages and I watched a lecture. But I don't know. I'm starting to recognize the NLP in other people, though. I think people are reading or get it somehow. I mean, NLP is just like one specific iteration or branding for just something that's generalized, going like law of attraction stuff. Law of attraction stuff is everywhere. It's not just, it's in astrology, it's here, it's there, it's everywhere. So like NLP is trying to synthesize and codify certain aspects of popular psychology that a huge amount of people are engaged with. And when you start to systematize your thinking and your understanding of it, you start to see it around you. You start to see the ways that people are engaging in it. And it's kind of funny. Swoosh effect is the only thing I got of NLP book. Yeah, I don't know what the swoosh effect is. Ism seems to be a kind of ontological. Let me read this again. Ism seems to be kind of a logical ism that once ised will ism through ism will result in a law. So let's add something. Scientism seems to be kind of a scientological scientism that once scientized will, with scientism through scientism will result. I need different words for each of these things. Okay. Scientism seems to be a kind of theologized. Let's make this a tweet. This is a tradition. Each stream will produce a tweet. I got to write this out because this is too complicated for my brain to handle. Okay, so let's go. We're going to steal. Was this Fourth D coming up with this here? I got to focus for a moment. No, it was space-time. Okay, space-time. So let's see. Let's see. Scientism will be it seems to be kind of theological What's another ism we can say? Scientism seems to be kind of theological. Let's check the current live chat. Parasocial relationship. People are not responding to what I'm doing right now. You're not helping me out, live chat. I don't know what to say here. I'm stuck. Isms. Satanism. Okay. Satanism that once ized, that once immanentized with immanentized. I think I need a Z there rather than an S. Immanentized. Maybe immunized. Immunized with liberalism through someone give me an ism. Someone throw me an ism here. Globalism. There we go. Yeah, we'll throw in globalism. Scientism seems to be kind of theological Satanism that once immunized with liberalism through globalism will result in a logic. Where we go? Socialism, neologism, intellectualism, libertarianism, activism, Gnosticism, maybe, but it's logicalism. What goes with logicalism? Sociologicalism? I'll do sociologicalism. Sociologicalism. Scientism seems to be kind of theological Satanism that once immunized with liberalism through globalism will result in social. That is the tweet. That is the nonsensical. You know that does anyone remember that what is it called? I'm trying to think of the fake paper that was written by some like conservative, and he submitted it to a peer-reviewed journal, and they were like, "Oh, this is such an awesome thing. We're going to publish this." And then he came out and he was like, "Actually, I didn't write that. A computer wrote that. It was an auto-generated essay based off like this machine learning or whatever." And it was kind of like disproving the idea that that peer review was meaningful at all. Because look, this computer just took a bunch of leftists to like postmodern language and threw it together. Let's see if we can see like postmodern peer review hoax. Let's see what pops up. The Sokal hoax. Yeah, this happened back in 1996, I guess. So basically, this is a Sokal hoax, but for post-liberal, whatever the heck, Twitter people. If it ain't broke, biohacking is coming soon. Ken has already been biohacked. Imagine what is imaginable. Sounds like hippie nonsense. Scroll up. We got to scroll up. There we go. Desire for X can be modified, but desire for desire, doubtful. I don't know. Sounds like it would be an infinite regress. Would that be a desire for the absence of desire? Yeah, that's why I describe this process as a black hole, because it's like gravity has become so dense that it's collapsed space-time. Here, like the desire for desire creates this runaway effect where it like somehow collapses the system in a spiritual sense, not materially, not in an economic sense, but like ideologically. Will, in the everyday sense of the word, just is. To lose humanity is to deviate from the model of what we are. This is related to morality. The model of what we are is part of culture, faith. Have you ever done a genetic test? What is your ancestry? Also, great to see you are reading NLP. Have you read How to Win Friends and Influence People? I think I read it a while ago. I am a mystery. Yeah, please speculate in the chat as to the answer to your question. In my conviction, humanity is more than a model that can be territorialized by technology. Okay, William Jennings, life extension technology is on the horizon. Not only are there aspects of the human that technology can't encompass, but the human is essentially otherworldly. Yeah, the chat is too smart for me tonight. I can't I can't read these and effectively respond to these. I am burnt out. I've been talking for the last 3 hours. Not only are there let's just read it again. There are aspects of the human that technology can't encompass, but the human is essentially otherworldly. Yeah. How much Coke? Not a big fan of Coke. I don't drink a lot of soda. How many versions is Ken saved? I don't know. Gonna go run a mile. Okay. I start to get the impression the obstruction is inherent from the subject observer dichotomy. The statement of the proposition requires us to observe humanity. Identity is forged, not chosen. While listening. Okay, so William Jennings is going to be Randy tonight. He is going to simultaneously exercise and listen to the stream. Let's check where we are at on time. Let's just give it a quick time check. We're going to be probably ending the stream in the next 30 minutes or so. So it's going to be a little shorter than usual. In that sense, it's interesting to contemplate the plot of The Matrix, where technology can't entirely enframe humanity, but does so overwhelmingly anyway. Trains valuation. I was initially drawn to Kenneth for the same reasons that he enjoyed Ivan's recent video. Eloquence and righteous frustration that bled through the screen. Hopefully himself and his future wife. Don't know what that's in relation to. He is right about looks being used as a proxy for intelligence. Kylo looks like a parrot. It's one way to describe it. Gene therapy. I wouldn't describe it as a parrot. Parrots do not come to mind when I think of Kylo. Gene therapy will allow us to get endorphins without running. Susan, his godmother. Yeah, Susan. Testing 1, 2, 3. Haku, and he was a very pretty dude. Haku from Naruto. Yeah, Haku, very ambiguously gendered. Trans Naruto. When did Naruto come out, dude? Is that 2006? When was Naruto? Adaptations, Naruto 2007. First came out in 1999. Broadcast 2002. Premiered 2007. So yeah, there was some transgender stuff in there pretty early on. No one understood. No one knew where that was going to go. Porn addiction is a spiritual genocide. I call it spiritual sadism. Dinosaur denial gets you in trouble in Europe. Okay. Jenny's porn is absolutely destructive and tragic. Things are perfected in their wholeness, not in their extremeness, corruption, which tends to destroy. Dang, the molasses is hot tonight. Yeah, molasses is hot. American-style Christianity is useful as a very obvious exposition of priestly evil. There's a lot of examples of that. It's useful in pointing out the something or other. Jeggings. Have you seen There Will Be Blood? If so, what do you think about it? I have not seen There Will Be Blood. I don't like the violence of the movie. Like, I'm comfortable in watching a violent Hollywood movie if the movie is like he gets shot in the head and his head explodes, or he gets shot in the chest and he gets flown 50 feet back, or that kind of extreme. The dude, he gets chopped in half. But in There Will Be Blood, the few scenes I've seen of it where it's like there is this kind of psychological violence, and that's harder for me to watch, harder for me to enjoy than just like the Hollywood popcorn violence. So no, I have not seen There Will Be Blood. It seemed like a pretty extreme movie to me. The way the guy is like threatening the priest there's like, at the end of the day, if the priest is the nerd and I'm a nerdy guy, then I instinctively like fear the way he approaches that priest. I'm like, oh God, it's me. He's coming for me. Body language is 60% of how we communicate. Pretty woke chat. Desire to learn philosophy is the desire to become a political demagogue. That's the gasoline. Interesting that Kanye went with that weird boomer mass cult leader and not like orthodoxy or something that the Twitterati are memeing. Kanye is actually being more authentic than them. I don't know that Kanye is authentic. I don't really like Kanye. I mean, he's the most popular rapper he was in like the 2000s for certain people to listen to. So I would have friends who would blast Kanye, and it was like we're friends and we're blasting Kanye. It wasn't so much that I liked Kanye. It was that like I liked the collective experience of like here's a form of music that we all like listen to and we do stuff. And that was kind of the context in which I enjoyed Kanye. Like I never sat down by myself and listened to Kanye and it was like, oh yeah, I love this song. But it was that song was nostalgic to me because it reminded me of time I spent with friends. So that's the only aspect to which I ever enjoyed Kanye. And the boomer mass cult leader is not it does not strike me as authentic. At the same time, orthodoxy or something has a lack of authenticity, as I've described. The idea of we can just turn back the clock. Well, no, orthodoxy it became orthodoxy because it went through an authentic process of development. And now you're suggesting like we go back in time and jump back into that. The idea of going backwards through time rather than forwards seems to be inauthentic. Hydrogenated vegetable oil. Where is he reading these comments from? Yeah. Oh yeah. Tell me what all to eliminate from my diet and environment so I can get maximum T. First of all, leave the planet Earth because we're just filled with plastics, and the film Dark Waters talks about how there are these forever chemicals that exist everywhere. Like what's the one they use on the pans? Not Tyson, Teflon. You got Teflon, you got plastics, you got hydrogenated oils, vegetable oil, all of this stuff. You just got to leave the planet Earth, dude. And some people survive it. There's a bell curve of how it affects you. And then some people just have naturally high testosterone. So it kind of counteracts and they end up being a normal person. Basically, in the future, the only people who will be like normal men are going to be people who have the genetic potential to be like hypermasculine. Because like it's essentially that our genetic potentiality for testosterone is being shifted to the lower end. And so only like the small little bit of the bell curve are going to survive in the middle of what is considered traditional masculinity. And everyone else is going to be forced into transgender, feminist, androgynous land. So that is where we're heading biochemically. It's only compounding itself. I mean, now it's not just an accidental, like, oh, we didn't know vegetable oil was doing this. Now it's like, we're going to inject vegetable oil straight into our veins, like purposefully, because we want to totally pacify ourselves. We had all these terrible things happen before, but this time social media will escalate it. Take a DIM supplement. Don't know what that is. I read the shortest book by Ayn Rand, Anthem. It was cool when I was 15. Yeah. There's that teenage angsty period where if you're precocious, you look at your peers, you look at your teachers, and you're like, these people suck. I'm done with these people. I never read Ayn Rand. I didn't get into Nietzsche, but I sort of, understand that angst. And then later on, when I would see Rand or Nietzsche, I would say, this is just edgy teenager stuff. There's no point to reading this. I still don't think there's a point to Ayn Rand just because I've gone through enough of the libertarian theory to know it's not for me. But the Nietzsche stuff, I thought it was going to be irrelevant, but I think he is big. I think Nietzsche is bigger than Leopold and Loeb. Like, I still don't like Leopold and Loeb. I still don't like spree shooters, but I think Nietzsche is saying a little bit more than those people were deriving from him. You judge the tree by its fruits. That's the maxim I was going on to judge Nietzsche, but I think in some cases, just because Nietzsche says a lot of nonsense, and he does, I mean, he goes crazy toward the end of his life. He is poetically speaking. He is a risky thinker. He's not systematic. He's just throwing stuff out there. And yet there are some things that he says that I think do have value. Parasocial relationship. Yes, that is the word I was looking for. By the way, anime is Japanese soft power. Globalism started in the 1970s onward. Around that time, they began to introduce European characters into their parables. I don't know. I don't know if anime is Japanese power kind of expanding into the globe. I think actually anime is significantly a product of the West and Western thinking. It is Japanese mythology fit into a European mold. So I kind of have the opposite. I think anime is the product of European colonialism in Japan rather than the other way around. Libertarianism as an ideology is a non-thing in my native context, so I never had that period. I was always just a general skeptic, kind of good with going too fast here. Skeptic kind of guy with no coherent wholesale worldview. I'm getting tired here. W's. People are doing W's to remind me to hydrate myself. My eyes are getting tired. They're getting dry. I shall sleep in the next hour or so. Hey, we got socialism, globalism, cynicism, neologism, intellectualism, abolitionism, libertarianism. Have you been catching the millennial? No. Pastorism, Gnosticism, MW, back for the holidays. Cool. Solipsism, activism, anti-Grinch, basically Santa. I don't know about that. Santa has to have a big white beard. Santa has chubby cheeks. Asyllogism. I unsubscribed and I saw Millennial with Jared Taylor and Sargon on my YouTube timeline. And sorry, but it's not 2016. I'm not subscribed, so don't know what that's like. Post-liberalism, a deep tweet, anti-disestablishmentarianism, insightful tweet. Anime is indeed Japanese soft power. Park Chung-hee and South Korea banned imports of manga and anime during the 1970s, along with U.S. rock and roll music for corrupting the youth. Why is it corrupting the youth? It's not Japanese. Anime is not Japanese. Anime is Japanese culture, which is filtered through the medium of Western thinking. The fake, I mean, that's why anime didn't exist and manga didn't exist prior to the atom bomb in America taking over. I mean, I don't know how you can, people invest themselves in anime and they think, oh, this is so like anti-Western. This is so traditional, so trad. It's like Mishima. Mishima would have loved anime. No, he didn't. Mishima didn't love anime. He didn't love manga. You don't know what Japanese culture is. You don't know what samurai culture is if you think anime and manga is an authentic expression of the traditional Japanese spirit. It is a purely Western construct. It is Japanese language filtered through a Western lens, filtered through the Western media, and the medium is the message, right? So I have a McLuhanite opinion on anime. The fake paper trick has happened a few times in social science. Yeah, Sokol hoax, esoteric moralization. Aren't you going to get banned from Twitter for that tweet? I said scientism seems to be kind of theological. I mean, I guess the worst word I'm using there is Satanism. I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll have to create a new Twitter. Kenneth Kahn of the Cool Kids Kool-Aid Club. Thank you. Kenneth is a secret German and Scottish and Italian, surely largely German ancestry, German and Anglo, largely British, dash of Irish. Chad Kenneth Braun versus Virgin Kenneth Brown. Maybe a pinch of Italian. Kenneth is Happa. Serious though, my guess is German, patrilineally English. Thank you for all of your guesses. I appreciate that. I appreciate that speculation. I watched the first season of Naruto, but gave up on it. Yeah, you have to watch it as a kid. If you're older than the age of childhood and you're watching Naruto, we probably have a problem. But look, children like childish stuff, so it was appropriate. That is my cope. Sharingan, etc., is kind of cringe, especially look at Japanese people. They're not as cool as Naruto. I'm sorry. Yeah, true. I mean, look, there's some cool things. Here's the red pill on sumo wrestling. All of the top sumo wrestlers are not Japanese. They're Mongolian. So I'm just throwing that out there. Anglo-Saxon. Daniel Plainview is coming for Ken, who is, oh, yeah, I drink your milkshake. Yeah, it gives me nightmares. I haven't watched the film, but I saw that scene, and I was like, is he going to drink my milkshake? I get scared. I wake up in the middle of the night. It's like, oh, my milkshake. Who's the one who does the milkshake? Milkshake brings the boys. Who's the one who does the Shakira, Beyonce, Kellis? My milkshake brings the boys to the yard. Milkshake, Holly Hagen, Milkshake, the pictures. I thought it was someone more popular who invented this song. I've never heard of these people before. Milkshake. I guess it was this one, Kellis, my milkshake. Yeah, that's That's how I feel. I'm like, the boys are not going to come to the yard anymore if you steal my milkshake. If you drink my milkshake, how am I going to get the boys in the yard to play kickball? Maybe philosophy is just smart people coping with being poor. Did I say that? Did I say that? I probably said that at some point. Is the left and right dichotomy false? In some respects, yes. In some respects, no. Why is DLive so quiet, by the way? Oh, do I have to turn OBS up? Do I have to increase the volume on OBS? All right. Tips for improving digestion. Gut bacteria, my friend. You got to have your kombucha. You got to have your sauerkraut. You got to have, what is the South Korean kimchi? Whatever you like, whatever's tasty to you, you got to start getting that gut bacteria. You got to get off those antibiotics. Meat that you eat has antibiotics in it. So if you can get antibiotic-free meat, you go with that. You're going to improve your digestion. And you got to learn, some people react badly to dairy because they're not lactose tolerant. You know, there's all kind of, you're just going to learn about different bananas and apples and different fruits and a fruit shake, like not a milkshake, but fruit smoothies. Chocolate to me has a kind of anti-diuretic effect that chocolate kind of solidifies everything. I'm talking about raw chocolate, not milk chocolate. I'm talking about raw baker's chocolate. I'm talking about chocolate, which is pure chocolate, no milk, no sugar, just pure baker's chocolate. So there's a lot of stuff that you can eat to change your digestion. Some people eat clay. I don't eat clay. Some people eat clay and dirt and things like that. There's a lot of things you can do to improve your digestion. Maybe do a Google search. Society rejects you if you're at the extreme end of the masculine. I guess so, but I'm just trying to say that if you go back to the 1950s and you look at how men act, like even hippies, like 1960s hippies, 1970s hippies, you look at them, they're masculine. You look at their jaws, they look like masculine guys. They can beat people up. Even though they're hippies, pacifists, peace lovers, they're still strong. This is kind of like the baby boomers. So they have this liberal mentality or this ideology, John Lennon, but they're still like masculine men. They're strong men. And now we've shifted so far that even conservatives, you look at Charlie Kirk and he's like a feminist. You look at the conservatives, I guess Donald Trump's a baby boomer. You look at young conservatives. And frankly, these young conservatives, I won't say all of them. I'll say there are exceptions. I'm not talking about anyone in particular, but there are a lot of these young conservatives who kind of are very weak and effeminate compared to their forefathers, who were liberals, who were leftists. So you look at leftists and liberals from the 1960s and 70s, they're way more masculine than the conservative hard right today. You look at some of these really far right people, and you compare them to hippies in the 60s and 70s, and it's like there's something biological going on here. Maybe you reject society, walk off into the forest. True. Good luck with living in the forest. Hey, people do it. It's possible. I know people who do it. It's still weird to me to observe the fall of masculinity between my father and me. I wonder how much is genetic, environmental. Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, oftentimes just looking at your father, you also have to question your mother because, men will choose feminine partners and then they're going to have feminine sons. So really the thing you want to do is you want to find women with big, giant jaws, women who can crush a watermelon with their thighs, women who like play sports, they're in the military. That's not genuine advice. It's probably not going to be too good for the relationship necessarily in terms of the absolutism of the sociality of marriage. But in genetic terms, it's we read that. Only women are allowed to be masculine, possibly. Modify your genes for more T, possibly. Eric and the post-liberalists themselves identify the so we got Hector in the chat. We got Hector. Hector has arrived in the chat to spread his priestly spirit. Do you think your judge of character could be improved? That's an interesting question, Hector. I would ask that to you. And we'll see. We'll see where all this goes. We'll find out. We'll find out in the end. We'll find out in a couple of years, right? We'll find out where all the chips fall. But Anyway, I seriously doubt he's aware of the neo-absolutist, post-liberalist distinction. Take May. I don't even care. Like, I'm coming from a place of people are referencing philosophers who have nothing to do with their little niche, fashionable philosophy. And I'm saying, I'm going to engage with this for my own benefit. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, I can conceive of some kind of perfect, like Hindu, Christian, perfect synthesis, pure, and no Satanists are allowed, and no bad people are allowed, and we're never allowed to do bad things. And I'm not saying we should do bad things, but I'm just saying it's like you can either choose the quick, dirty, and messy way, the imperfect, the fallen way to try to go on this journey of truth seeking or whatever it is, or you can be like, no, we can't engage with people who are Satanists. It's like, well, if we say that, if we can't engage with people who are Satanists, then you're kind of like looking under every rock for a Satanist. I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't know. That is, if your idea is that in response to Satanism, you like don't talk to Satanists and you just quietly read your books with the good, pure people, and that's what works for you, fine. But that doesn't work. That doesn't seem to be working for me. I've throughout my life, I have seen the good, pure people. I know the good, pure people. I know the people who they're very good in their private lives. They've never done anything bad. They never break any rules. They're not Satanists. And I see those people and I see that situation and I see the dogma that accompanies that kind of thinking. And it doesn't impel me to action. It doesn't impel me to do anything. At the same time, I feel a moral obligation to learn and to create and to engage with something dynamic. And so I've seen, the option to exclude all satanic influence from your life and live the pure, holy, true path. I wouldn't be on the internet. The internet is a satanic place. The internet is satanic. Why are you using the internet? This is a satanic construction constructed by Satanists. So, I mean, if you take this thing far enough, yeah, it is what it is. And I would be very careful, Hector. I mean, I would be very careful when you start calling people Satanists, and then you have people inspect your own life. And I'm not saying this is ever going to happen. Maybe you stay an anonymous person on the internet forever. You never show your face. You just judge other people. But I would just kind of caution these Heimbach characters. That's who they are. Heimbach characters who get on their moral high horse and they get down and they judge everybody else. And maybe no one ever finds out about their little secret things in their little lives. Maybe no one ever finds out all the mistakes they've made and all the rough and messy and dirty path they had to go on to get where they are. And they can just sit up there on their high horse and say, all of you people who are engaging with the world, you're engaging with Satanism, you should cordon yourself off, you should ghettoize yourself, you should never talk to anybody. You can't even disagree with people in a civil way because that's even too much. You're perverted, you're infected with the spirit of Satanism. You say that, but I think a lot of times the people who are saying that, such as yourself, Hector, is you've gone through a process of dirt and filth and muck and mud, and now you think you're in a place where you can judge other people. And maybe I'm making a Christian argument. I'm not really trying to appeal to Christianity here, but I think maybe people could draw parallels between those who say, Christ hung out with prostitutes. That's not the argument I'm making, but as I'm saying the argument, I'm trying to think of the counter arguments, what is going to be said in response. Oh, you're just like those people who say Christ hung out with prostitutes. It's not really directly what I'm saying. Of course, those prostitutes had turned away from prostitution, right? Or at least theoretically, that's the conservative Christian argument, that he wasn't hanging out with bad people. He was hanging out with bad people who had repented. So there's a difference there, I suppose. There is a forgiveness of people who did bad things in the past, but promise not to do it again in the future. I guess the question I have is, is that really true, or have these things sublimated? You know, when you say, yeah, I did bad things in the past, but now I'm pure and good and true, and therefore I'm not going to associate with these Satanists, and you're in that position. It's like, well, have you really purified yourself? And who is you? Who is your identity? Are you separate from the mistakes you made, or did those mistakes somehow build you? In confrontation with evil, again, that's why I think Star Wars, the original trilogies, is great, because it's a confrontation with evil where we see the seduction of evil and we have to encounter it, we have to interact with it. Now, in Star Wars, it's a violent confrontation with lightsabers and guns. It's not philosophical. It's not a discussion. It's not civil. But I think the analogy, I'm certainly not going to be doing violence. I'm certainly not going to be in the cage match beating people up. And so what course of engagement do I have then? I have to engage philosophically. I have to engage with my words. I have to engage in discussion. And for me, ad hominem, do not advance the discussion in a genuine, authentic way, and just disengaging and saying, oh, well, these people are bad, we shouldn't touch them. I don't, listen, this is what I think. This is my opinion. I don't avoid libertarianism and libertarians because I think they're evil and satanic. I avoid them because I think they're boring and outmoded and outdated. And there are exceptions like Ivan. There are people who are libertarians who really impress me. But overall, I don't really engage with the ideology, not because I think it's evil and satanic, but because I think it's boring and deeply flawed, not morally flawed, but it just doesn't take into account the whole picture. They just don't know what's going on. They're just ignorant. They're just superficial in their thinking. You know, I don't engage with a lot of these people. I would be happy to engage with people if I felt like they were interesting, if I felt like they're bringing something to the table. I've engaged with people on the left. I engage with people who are Marxists. I'd be happy to engage, and I have many times engaged with people who are liberals. Most of the time when I engage with these people, they stop engaging with me because they view me as the Satanist. So throughout my life, I have been viewed as the Satanist. I've been viewed as the evil, perverted, the corrupter of the youth, you know, the Socrates who's coming down and tearing down the sacred cows and offending people. And I've been viewed as, you know, the Satanist in this situation. And so I'm just not so quick to exile people and say, from what position of power do I have? I have 25 viewers, and you're telling me that I'm supposed to exclude people. Now, again, I disagree with these people. But the idea then that I just don't have that position. And maybe you do, Hector. Maybe I've misjudged you. Maybe you've lived a morally pure life, or maybe you made mistakes, but now you're a pure person and you're in a position where you can say, I have my own little group of people. I don't know how big your group is, but I have my own little group of people. And we are so pure and so repentant, and we've put aside that old life. And now we're in a position to start excluding people. We're in a position to start calling people Satanists and saying, you're not allowed in the club, and we can't talk to you, and you can't engage with this person. You know, and Hector, I ask you personally, would you ever engage with these people? Would you have a discussion? Would you have an argument? And the thing is, when you start using ad hominem and calling people Satanists and attacking their character, you can't really have a rational debate. You can't really have a civil debate. So, I mean, I just try not to do it in general. If I was to talk to a leftist, a Marxist, a liberal, I wouldn't, and I have before, and people have in the past, if they know me long enough, they know I've done this. I don't come at them and start saying, oh, you evil leftist, you're the cause of everything, you're a Satanist. I don't do that. Yeah, I can still disagree. And I feel like the purpose of discussion and debate and argumentation is not to attack the other person. It's not to throw slings and arrows and insults, but it's to appeal to the audience. It's to learn. Frankly, the reason I engage in debates, two reasons: to learn more about my own arguments and the flaws of my own arguments, as well as to educate the audience. My purpose is never to convert the person on the other side. Usually that doesn't happen. There are very rare cases in which that happens. Changing your opinion is a slow process that happens over time. It doesn't happen over the course of an argument unless someone is very weak-willed, and they're just totally overshadowed by your force of personality. Maybe someone like Jay Dyer can accomplish this. I don't think I have that, so that's not really my goal. But I mean, with those two goals in mind, those not good goals. I will engage. I'm not going to say I'll engage with anyone who engages with me, because I'm not going to engage with people who are cringe. I'm not going to engage with people who are there's a lot of people on the internet. There's a guy, I mean, to show the extent of goodwill that I have, I don't know if it's goodwill, but maybe the extent to which I allow myself to be trolled. There's a guy, I think his name's like Humanist, Numanist or something, but he's changed his screen name like 7 times because I keep banning him. He's so persistent, and he keeps telling me the religion of the future is cuckoldry, and we have to embrace it authentically. And I'm like, why are you making this argument? How does this make sense? I'm trying to like give some kind of sympathetic, like devil's advocate, like, well, maybe you really mean this, and maybe this is a metaphor. Maybe you're like critiquing, aspects of what I'm saying, and this is like satirical. And he's like, no, 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 you don't understand. And I keep going through this cycle with him. It's been going on for a while. And they say, don't bait the trolls, don't talk to trolls. But like, this is the extent to which I will engage with people who are persistent, who are intelligent, who are coherent. There's so much on the internet that's just inane babble. I don't really want to have a debate on libertarianism necessarily, because it's just not that interesting to me. I think it's like you either get it or you don't. There are some people who are never going to be convinced. I just don't think it's like, I guess I have made arguments against libertarianism in this live stream. So it's not like if you back me into a corner, I'm not willing to engage. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the internet, like, take a big picture for a moment. What do we have here? We have a live stream with 27 viewers. Who is the most popular streamer on YouTube? How many viewers do they get? Maybe 2,000, maybe 4,000, maybe 6,000. Maybe that's going to continue to increase. Maybe it won't. But even the most popular live streamer on YouTube is still small, still ineffectual, still little. And so at the end of the day, I kind of have an attitude like, I'm not here to make enemies of people. I'm not here to declare my superiority to people. I'm not here to, I'm not here as like the leader of a political movement or a political party in the way that other people are and fashion themselves, and they fit into that role, where really, if you're running a political party, your job is to exclude heretics and to convert people and to have, an ideology. And this is talked about elsewhere. I don't know if I can cite all the places where it's talked about, but there are certain people who talk about the fanaticism of Christianity as this necessary aspect of its success. That you really, if you have an ideology, you're pushing an ideology, you have to be fanatical about it. And you have to just exclude and call everybody a heretic, call everyone a witch, call everyone a Satanist who doesn't agree with you. You need to create an us versus them mentality, to reference Carl Schmitt, friend versus enemy distinction. You have to create this black and white. I will talk to these people, I will not talk to these people, if you want to have a successful religion, if you want to have a successful political movement. I'm in a stage where I'm not prepared to say I have the dogma. I have the dogma, and I'm going to slap you across the face with the dogma until you're black and blue and you submit to my rule. That's not me. That's not who I am. That's not where I am. Maybe at some point I'll have a revelation and say, this is the dogma, and if you don't agree, you're a Satanist. But I'm not in a position to say that at this point. I'm not educated enough, because people keep introducing these new arguments. So as long as I hear new arguments that seem to be interesting, I'm not going to be at a point where I can say I have the dogma to judge who is good and who is bad, who is pure, who is impure, who is holy, who is unholy, who is a Christian, who is a Satanist. Of course, you say you're not a Christian, Hector, and you say that, oh, I'm tolerant and Christianity is intolerant. This is why I think you're such a funny character, because you seem to lack this self-awareness about, on this topic of intolerance. You constantly rail against Christianity as intolerant, and yet here you're saying, oh, those people are Satanists, you can't talk to them. It's like, okay, well, I disagree with them, and I want to critique them. In order to critique them, I have to understand their source material. It'd be like me critiquing libertarianism if I had no clue what it was, if I didn't know what property was, so I have to understand. I'm on a quest of understanding. And if I change my opinion, I'm open to changing my opinion. And I'm also open to, this is a liberal position, right? I'm open to changing my position, but I'm also open to the idea that I'm right in the end. And I finally have the tools and language with which to defend myself and to say, look, I've mastered your system. I understand your system. I've worked through your system, and it's still wrong. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen. There's a potentiality, there's a dynamicism to the process of this, which I think is a kind of a scientific inquiry with ideas that are in themselves maybe paradoxical or illogical, But I find it stimulating. And I guess that means I mean, at what point you say you think your judge of character could be improved? Well, at what point am I just a Satanist? At what point do I get cast out? At what point do I get oh well, don't you know Kenneth calls himself a Satanist? Is that what you're going to be saying at some point in the future? I don't know. I don't know, man. Maybe I've gone in too long. So let's get back to these. The thing is, Hector has liked content of mine in the past, and I've appreciated critiques he's given when we talk about the Indo-European tripartite system and in different aspects. It's not that I hate the guy, but it's I don't know, when it gets to these. It's not an argument. It's just judge the fruits by the tree. You're not judging the tree by the fruits. You're not saying these guys are bad because their arguments are wrong and here's why. It's saying these arguments should not be engaged with because the people who generate the arguments are bad, which, is a maxim. It's a heuristic we could use if we don't know the people involved. And maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe in the end I'll say, yeah, you're right. They were all Satanists and they were all evil people and they seduced me and now I'm in hell and I'm burning in hell. It's so funny that someone who again, I don't hate you. I think it's funny when you describe yourself as a Hindu and then you call people satanic. It's like, where is this? Why don't you use the Hindu word? Why are you using Christian terminology, Judeo-Christian terminology for your enemies? So that's that. I seriously, we'll probably have some responses from Hector. We'll probably revisit all of that in the next 5 minutes. I seriously doubt he's aware of the blah blah blah. Take a magnesium citrate. Don't know what that is. Anime's new Japanese tradition. Okay, I will try to think of a way to live in a way to maximize tea naturally without leaving the planet. Okay. Ken, as a child, coping with childhood makes sense. Kellis, the merchant, is coming for your milkshake. Or the warrior. The warrior could be coming for that milkshake as well. There will be blood is the struggle of the merchant and the priest. Yeah, maybe it's not the warrior. I don't know. In that sense, he seemed pretty warrior to me with the axe and everything. But maybe it is the merchant. Japanese have had manga and proto-anime as a material culture for many centuries. Okay, cite your source, bro. I've never heard of that before or seen it. If you can get past the psychological violence in the movie, I think you'd find it interesting. Yeah, possibly. Sauerkraut, Crypto-German confirmed. I can neither confirm nor deny. Wearaboo should learn Hebrew, to be honest. Supposed to be lactose intolerant, but I have no trouble with dairy products. Interesting. You are exceptional. Your gut is HCI. What does that mean, your gut is HCI? If I Google that phrase, is it going to give me an answer? Hypochlorhydria, low stomach acid. Okay, interesting. Hydrochloric acid. That is all very interesting stuff. Chad Clay eater versus Virgin Ken, possible. Look into fecal transplants to improve your gut. Oh my goodness. Fecal transplants? Are you talking about eating poop, Hector? Hector, I don't know what you're talking about, but it sounds like you're talking about eating poop. So hopefully not. Hopefully not. I have not yet taken the literal brown pill on fecal transplants. I do not know what that is. I've never heard of that before. Whew. Okay. Hebrew has a cold industrial aesthetic, according to Jean Gannett. We've got Jean Gebser. We've got Jean Pidgeot. We've got Jean Gannett. I've never heard of. Let's look up Jean Gannett. I don't think of Hebrew as cold and industrial. I just think of it as very guttural and, related to Arabic and Aramaic and these sort of things. It's not a language, I guess I could learn Hebrew, but I'm not like chomping at the bit to learn it. Champing at the bit, whatever the term is. John Lennon did some really toxically masculine stuff. Yeah, he definitely did. He did some toxically masculine stuff. Only Germans eat raw onions. I don't know. Fuentes is high neoteny. It's true. I don't think Fuentes in particular. He does have some jaw structure to him. He does have some brow ridge to him. He's also a young guy, and he can also grow a full beard. So I don't think he's the highest neoteny out there. I do think he could use some physical exercise. I understand he's very mental. He's all up here, but he probably could use some stretching, some exercise, and whatnot. Oof, I'm probably high neoteny on good days with enough sleep. I look like I'm in my teens. The Aristos and elites often selected for feminine features, gracilized smaller bone features. True. An Amazonian. Oh, yeah, I don't know about that. Pelvis and mortar. Don't know what that means. It is normal. Okay, yeah, I guess it is. It is normal. Microplastics in our environment. Take sip from plastic. This is not plastic, by the way. This is pure glass. I mean, the top is plastic, unfortunately. Still looking for some natural cork. Galaxy brain woke, built by a cultist. The internet is Satan himself. Yeah, that's what Alex Jones says in a way. And he's not entirely wrong. True Christians pervert Satan's creation for good. Wholesome BDSM. Oh, okay. Well, they say in the Bible, it says that which occurs between man and wife, between them, is holy and good. That's what Pastor Anderson says in his sermon. But when I went through the phase of being interested in the guy, and I saw this sermon where he's like, without saying, because there's always kids in the audience, so he can never be explicit. But he's like, so I've been getting some questions about what you can't do and you can't do in the bed. What's Christian and what's not Christian? And there's some kids here, so I'm just going to say anything that happens between a man and woman in the bedroom is holy and good and pure, whatever happens. So I think there's probably some, not that I really get into that, to be honest, if you want to know the personal truth, not that I really see the point. I'm just not someone who's like, oh, this piece of rope adds so much interest here. That's never been my thing. But maybe. I thought the bottle was a glass kombucha bottle. True. Plastic cap. Yeah, the plastic cap kind of ruins it, but it's not like saturated in the plastic. It's not touching the plastic, so it's not the worst thing. I like technocracy. Rule of engineers are specialists on a meritocratic basis. Sounds pretty traditional. Remove the cap and use metal or use a glass jar. Yeah, I gotta get something. I gotta buy one of those hipster jars, but I rarely buy things. I just repurpose things that I find. I'm like, oh, kombucha bottle. Well, let's just reuse it, Let's see. You can make a slightly more meritocratic system, but you're still inframed by technology. It's already contaminated. Have I ever said that I'm perfect? The distinction between those who at least espouse the just path and those who worship the exact opposite. I guess the problem is, yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying when you say like it's good. It's better to be a hypocrite than to be someone who embraces evil. Like, I understand the argument you're making. I just don't think that means that you excommunicate people. On what basis? I mean, maybe if I was the Pope and I was the head of the Catholic Church, I'd start excommunicating people because I'd say I have a big base here. We can afford to do that. I've just seen many internet movements come and go, as Ivan says, fashionable internet movements, which proclaim to be, the final ideology, anarcho-capitalists, other edgy right-wing people. And I see them excommunicating their friends, and or not necessarily their friends, but excommunicating people who orbit their circle. The neo-reactionaries are bad for this reason, and these people are bad for this reason. And everybody, and Nick, to take a practical example, he does a little bit of both, or he's done two different things at two different times. That sometimes he's been very excommunicative. At other times, he's been more inclusive. Right now, I think he's being more inclusive in certain ways. It's a fine balance you have to strike. And he also has quite a large audience. So I think when you have a large audience, you can kind of afford to do that. And I think there is a point at which, when something gets large enough, it speciates. And so I think there's a point at which if you have like a small internet subculture and it blows up, then maybe at that point we start differentiating ourselves and we say like, okay, well, these people are these people and we're us, and we have to kind of separate ourselves. And I understand that. But when we're literally talking about like who's involved here, you're not really involved, Hector. You're just making comments. I'm involved. Okay. There's a couple of individuals over. I can literally list like less than I can count 5 people who are involved. So we're talking about 5 people arguing on the internet as if this is some kind of life and death struggle between like the forces of evil and the forces of goodness. It just seems kind of there seems to be kind of megalomaniacal spirit behind the idea that like if I choose to engage with this or not, like this is going to determine the future of my soul or something like I don't know. I just don't feel like I'm part of something important at this moment. There's something that's potentially important, perhaps in the future, but I think it has to be, in order to make steel, you need fire, you need pressure. In order to make a diamond, you need pressure. So I'm looking to put myself under pressure. I'm not looking to shield myself from external criticism in an ideological sense. Now, if you want to come at me personally and start making all ad hominem, then it's like, what do I have to do with that? I don't. You call me ugly. Well, I don't know what you look like, so not much I can say back. That is the sadism of the anonymity of the internet, is that you can just continually deconstruct and attack. Oh, you can't be friends with this person because they're an evil Satanist. And it's like, okay, well, what's the alternative? We just have no friends because no one is perfect. I would rather just kind of either ignore people that I don't like. And I think that's fine. I'm not forcing anyone to engage with people that they don't like. But the idea that everyone has to be forced to take sides, it's a very far right mentality. And I am of a liberal mentality. I believe that everyone should be given a chance to be heard, and we should listen to what people have to say and try to bounce ideas off each other. And this is my liberal mentality. So, at this point, I don't think it's right to cut people off. If I was in a central position of authority, I don't really, but that's not really my position. I don't envision myself even in the future being in that station. But I can understand why someone who says, I am the authority, I am the leader, why they would start doing this sort of thing. That's just not me. Wash it out. Used to be more cynical toward technology, but the meta take is that your anti-technology comes from technology itself, so it's best to come to terms, adapt, overcome tech with technocracy. Okay, neo-absolutism is Satanism sounds unobvious. One is political, the other is spiritual. Yeah, I don't think that's a good argument. I think neo-absolutism is absolutely spiritual. I mean, if neo-absolutism calls itself secular, then I think it's boring. What are your vices? They are mysterious. I am too ashamed of my vices to reveal my vices. I mean, in a sense, it's like, if you're someone who's going to say like, yeah, sometimes I smoke cigarettes, and yeah, sometimes I do a little of that online poker. I spend like $15 on some online poker. This is like the Midwestern, like Lutheran Christian is like, sometimes I do a little bit of the old gossip. I heard that the Smiths from down the street were getting divorced, and I know you shouldn't tell gossip, but I did it. So I'm here to confess at the church. If that's who you are, if that's who your vices are, bless your soul, dude. Bless your soul. If you can just be open and out there, like, here are all the bad things I do on a regular basis. Here are all the bad things I've done in the past. If that's you, if you can just be open and honest about that with people, like Milo is. Milo's like, yeah, I'm a very flawed person, and I'm flamboyantly flawed, and I accept my flaws. Like, there's something inauthentic about that. If you don't genuinely struggle with your vices, then they're not really vices, right? If you don't genuinely have a problem with yourself, then like you sort of lack depth. And when Milo goes out and he's like, yeah, homosexuality is so problematic. Like, I'm a conservative, but I'm also like gay and stuff. And you hear that, it's like, it's not genuine. Like, I don't believe that you're a conservative. Like, I don't take your conservatism seriously unless I think, to me, a true vice is a closeted vice. A true vice is not something you're willing to just, it's not your dirty laundry that you just hang out for everyone to see. And I think there's a tendency on the internet to do that. And the problem with that, because I've seen this a lot with The Amazing Atheist, is when I was in my atheist phase, I really looked up to him as a person. And he would say, "Oh yeah, I watch all this big butt porn, and I'm an atheist, and I like bananas and jacking off." And it's like, okay, well that's a way to sort of diffuse criticism and to deflate controversy, that you can say, yeah, I let it all hang out, but there's something sterile about that. You're turning things which are authentically problematic, and you're saying, yeah, I'm such a dirty little pig. What are you going to do about it? You're kind of it's using this kind of humor and comedy of like, oh, you want to know my vices? Let me tell you all the bad things I do. It's to me, it betrays a kind of fear that you're actually not willing to recognize your deeply flawed, problematic nature. And again, it doesn't have to be like, yeah, I'm a serial killer, or yeah, I'm just constantly like cheating. I have a massive pyramid scheme. I'm just cheating people out of millions or whatever. It doesn't have to be like, oh yeah, well, I was part of the, we're getting edgy on the TOS thing here if we go into too many examples, but it can be something simple. It can be like, I lie to people, or it can be like, it can be something simple. Like I wasn't loyal to a friend, when he needed me, I was too afraid to stand up for him. It can be something really simple like that, but that's not something that a genuine person, I don't think a genuine person just puts that out there on the internet, because that is, in some way that betrays a lack of recognition of the seriousness of the vice. Do you hear what I'm saying? So this is all just a justification for me to not be that person. I don't want to be that person. Although the decline in privacy seems to be pointing us to the point where we have to understand that at some point, like the Christian says, we will come before the judgment of God, and all of our sins will be laid to bear. And I think we're entering a period with the internet and privacy where your internet browser history is going to be out there in the public square. And people don't like to think about that. People think that's like, they just want to put that out of their mind because that's like too scary for a lot of people. But it's going to be that, like, we're going to somehow get to this point where, I mean, you see it with The Amazing Atheist. He didn't put out the video of him and the banana. It was like some jealous ex-girlfriend who put that out. So at some point, everything you've ever sent to somebody, or everything you've ever did in private, every private conversation you think wasn't recorded, it's going to be out there, and everyone's going to see it, and everyone's going to judge you for it. But I'm not going to preempt that by saying, here's every bad thing I did. Let me do a public confession. Because I've watched people do that. It seems to be ineffective. It seems that they go from one vice to another. It seems that they go through this priestly transformation of, I'm going to purify my life and be completely free of all sin. And then they sort of turn all that negative energy, which was directed towards sin, and they turn it toward this sadistic, puritanical denouncing of other people. And I think that is also poisonous in a more insidious way. So that is how Nietzsche is making me feel at the moment. Yeah, I'm not going to do that, Henry. There's a desacralizing aspect to knee reaction. To Imperius's credit, he acknowledges that and says he finds no interest in desacralization. Not using Satanism as an ad hominem, but in an objective sense, i.e. left-handism. I mean, wasn't Julius Evola into left-handism? Was Aleister Crowley into left-handism? Was Huxley into left-handism? Is there an element of left-handism in the perennial school? So like I don't even know enough. I haven't even read Evola. I don't even know enough about the left hand versus right hand dichotomy to even engage with that. So if we're going to go to that, like, I don't know enough. I don't know enough to prescribe a judgment from which I can judge people. I've studied all the philosophy and I know everything, and therefore I'm in a holy position to judge people. I just don't view myself as being in that position. I view myself as a student who is looking for help to learn. And that's the basis on which I'm operating. Is rationality your highest virtue? No. I'm not going to engage with people who are cringe. He's talking about schizophile. Nope, it's Volkscale. Okay. Yeah, I mean, again, the internet, there are people who have tried to engage with me and they're like, would you do an interview with the American Black Shirt Party? No, no, I'm not going to do that. I mean, if maybe YouTube was, maybe if society and YouTube was a little more loosey goosey and forgiving and tolerant, maybe I would engage in a discussion just to kind of like, dress people down but in some way, by engaging with people, you are giving them attention, you're giving them what they want. So sometimes ignoring people really is the best, which is why, look, Hector, if you hate somebody, if you think they're left-hand path Satanists, there's nothing good that comes out of engaging with them, there's nothing we can learn, okay, ignore them. Don't give fuel to me. Don't comment on my live stream. Don't, because every time you engage with me, you support me. Even if you hate me, even if you thumbs down the video, every time you engage with me, you support me. And I understand the argument that by engaging with them, I'm in effect supporting them. But referencing Ivan, I think there's a fashionability of ideology. They believe that post-liberalism is going to be the big new thing. They've changed their, first they were the Trudel Tom, and then they were the Neo Absolutist, and then they were the something else, and then they're the post-liberalist, and at one point they were the anti-ideology. What was it? Anti-ideology was the thing they were running with, and then that got totally dropped and thrown out the window. So, like, it's going to continue to change. Like, maybe they think they've reached the final dogma. I think it's going to continue to change. I think it's going to continue to transform, and I think there's a positive aspect to being part of that transformative process. Talking about the guy who worships cuckoldry, yeah. Maybe they're the same. There's a couple. Satanic Panic, but it's okay. Fourth Density. Listen to this. Satanic Panic, but it's about niche philosophical arguments using terms with self-created definitions. Yeah, exactly. And listen, I think people should study Satanism. Just as I think medieval Christians studied demonology, I think you should study Satanism. I think you should understand it, not to embrace it, not saying that causing, like, Satanism, as far as I understand it, there's two versions. There's Anton LaVey, and he promotes hedonism. Now, I reject hedonism, but I think it's important to understand like what it is. And then there's a form of Satanism which is sadistic, and this is pretty much Order of Nine Angles people. And I think it's important to understand what they're saying. And actually, so because this is how I came to perennialism in a way, is I started to say, okay, we've got these supposedly completely diametrical opposite systems, Satanism, Christianity. What do they have in common? This was my question. I also asked it with respect to paganism, because sometimes Christians will call pagan Satanists, like Pastor Anderson. And so I was asking myself, what is the similarity between these two supposedly diametrically opposite things? Christians hate pagans, pagans hate Christians. Some pagans call themselves Satanists. Order of Nine Angles peoples fit into this definition. And so they're all just going around in a circle, and it's also vitriolic, and it's also emotional and rhetorical and symbolic. Jesus is light and Satan is darkness or whatever. But some Satanists think Lucifer is light and Yahweh is the darkness. So I'm trying to look through this, and I'm trying to extract kind of a genealogy of morals and understand what is common between the two. So I don't think people should disengage from Satanism. In the same way, I think we should understand serial killers. I think we should understand murderers. I think we should understand all kinds of people who do bad things and think bad thoughts. Because in the same way as Dostoevsky portrayed his characters in his literature, I think we understand that there is an element of evil within all of us. In order to understand that evil, we have to be able to look at other people and engage with them and not simply reject them. I think the person who rejects knowledge of evil, in the same way rejecting the knowledge of good and evil, the Garden of Eden, that whole story, the story of rejecting evil is a story of rejecting your own self-understanding. So I think we have to kind of go through these ideas. And maybe you've already done that. Maybe you think you've already mastered the system and there's nothing left to learn for you to engage with this. But I feel like I have something to learn as someone who is amateur. How many pull-ups can Kenneth do? It depends. It depends. Certainly 10 reps with multiple sets, and then throw some weight on there and do some of that. But there's something I will say, like, as obviously less than big and bulky that I am, there's something to be said for balance. going in the gym and doing the bench press might feel good, it might look good, but you'd be surprised, and I was surprised when I started to understand the principles of physical therapy, the principles of kinesthesiology, that there's a harmony, there's a balance of the body in terms of posture and everything, biomechanics. And if you overwork your chest and you underdevelop your back, you're going to have problems. So I think there are a lot of people who'd be surprised about how few pull-ups they can really do with good form. And I'm not talking about chin-ups. I'm not talking about I have a bar and I go, ooh. I'm talking about full extension. You know what I mean? Full extension all the way. Good form. So there's all kinds of slappy things. I bet 10 is his max. Yeah, Henry's correct there. 10 is the max for a set. I mean, I did get this temporary exhaustion. I don't really think there's any exercise where you should do much more than 10 reps. I mean, there are some exceptions, but any big, basic exercise, 10 reps is usually the max, and then you start adding weight, and then you start adding sets to it. I know there are some people, it's like, oh, I can bang out 20 pull-ups or something like that. And again, usually when they do that, they're doing this, they're getting their chin up there, but that's not good form. CCTV Chinese. Again, I'm not like I'm the most bodily able person or something like that. I'm the supreme warrior body, ninja warrior. But that is it. That's just the truth. CCTV on October 1st had 1 million people watching on YouTube. The 70th anniversary of the PRC rally in Beijing. It was insane. That's cool. But that's state directed. That's not from the content creator. Lots of J's like Carl Schmidt. I don't know what that means. Are you implying that Carl Schmidt is Jewish? I don't think he is. I mean, he's a jurist. He is a jurist. So that is a J, right? If you go on Twitter, lots of atheists, East Coast Yale elites are reading and studying Carl Schmidt. Okay. That's always been the case. Doesn't mean Carl Schmidt is like bad, wrong, and stupid. There are very few people dedicated to a genuine spiritual path in my experience. Most associations lead to regression rather than progress, sadly. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, what can I say? There are few people, most associations lead. So I guess you're part of the elite few, the elites within the elites. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I see your associations as being like with degenerate Discord channels that was like Perennial Haven or whatever it is, where you talk about, I don't even know. I mean, I just see that kind of, I contrast that kind of like engagement with random. See, here's the thing. I think it's more satanic to engage with anonymous people on Discord than it is to engage face-to-face with people in a conversation on Skype or whatever, when you know the person. So, that kind of activity where you're talking about, like, I don't even know. I can't even sum it up, some of the weird different things I see or that get sent to me, where it's like, it's joking, it's nihilism. Like, I can't even differentiate where you're being genuine and where you're lying. And then you present in a completely different way. And I'm like, how is it, what is going on here? Where's the cognitive dissonance? Like, you're making all these jokes about porn, and then you are the spiritual authority to tell us who we should and shouldn't interact with, because if we interact with the wrong people, we're going to regress. I think there are a huge number of people who are just not interacting whatsoever. I'd rather say, let's interact, let's engage, and learn lessons from that the hard way. Maybe there are bad consequences. Maybe it leads us down the bad path. But I think that's better than just kind of saying like we should stay in our insane asylum, not talk to anybody, and just be the ascetic. I mean, really, if your idea is that it's better to be pure than to be engaged with the world, then go live in the woods. I'm not stopping you, certainly. I mean, that seems to be the best way to be pure. Go live in the woods. And then there'll be no internet, no Satanism, no bad stuff to influence you, just pure nature as Hindu Jesus intended it to be, or whatever you think. Go live in the woods. Why are you on the internet? Why do you make jokes about watching porn? Which, again, it's not like I'm not calling you out as an exceptionally evil or hypocritical person. It's just like, when you start drawing lines, where do we draw the line? Who has the authority to draw those lines? How do you obtain that authority to draw those lines? How do I know you're on the genuine spiritual path? How do I know you're not a Satanist? In a deeper sense, again, in the sense of, Hector, you yourself have acknowledged at many times that you believe Christians are evil and pagan Hindus are good. Whereas Christians believe the opposite. They think they're good and they think pagan Hindus are evil. So how do we judge? How do we organize a genealogy of morals here? I don't know. These supposed Satanists seem to be driving a conversation forward. Is that evil? Is that bad? And what doesn't Tolkien say about Gollum? That Gollum, though he was ill-intentioned, ultimately played a greater part in the salvation of Middle-earth. So I think I just don't have this psychology of like, I have to avoid talking to people because they will corrupt me in one way or another. I certainly do think there are associations you should avoid. I think there are toxic people who drag you down, people who denigrate you, people who try to control you, people who gaslight you, people who tell you, there are certain abusive people who will say, you shouldn't interact with them. You shouldn't talk with them. They want to control. It's almost like a jealous boyfriend, right? That's kind of how I feel like I'm being treated. Like, you shouldn't talk to them, and I understand there really is a wider society that is destructive, and maybe it would be better to just go and live in the woods in some respect. But ultimately, we're trying to found a community which can escape the chaos of the day-to-day hedonism and to get to something deeper. I'm interested in getting deep with it. That's like a monist, perennialist perspective, right? I mean, again, what's the problem with the left-hand path? Explain it to me. Rather than attacking the people, attack the idea. What's the problem with the left-hand path? Let's talk in terms of ideas, not people. Small-minded people talk about people. Big-minded people think about ideas, right? Isn't that the maxim? Categories must have boundaries. Categories and boundaries are peak modernity, just saying. This is so abstract, but always there are impurities that straddle the boundary. Oh boy, I'm 20 minutes past my bedtime. Who is Hector supposing to be Satanist, post-liberalist? Why do you keep denying that your body language and expressions are similar to Fuentes? I don't know, because what? Two people on the internet can have similar body language to Fuentes because he has also been influenced by Sam Hyde? What? I mean, if you say so, I mean, okay, I guess, I don't know, is that an insult? Is that a compliment? I don't know. I don't know. Similar body language and facial expressions. Are you calling me a Catholic Italian from Chicago? Is that the implication here? Okay. I mean, I guess so. I guess I have to admit it. He is actually my close family relative. That's actually what's going on. Imperius and Joel Davis, basically Adam Katz as well, but on what basis? I'm going to watch Xi Jinping's Macao speech on CGTN BRB. Joel Davis doesn't seem evil. People don't understand Sanskrit terminology for evil. Well, you follow a guy called Dharma Central who uses all these weird Hindu Sanskrit terms, and you promote him and think he's a good guy, and you post his links everywhere. So why don't you educate us? What is the Sanskrit terminology for evil? Explain it so that we can look it up and compare it to Nietzsche's genealogy. Why do you think these people are Satanists? How tall is Kenneth? Mystery. because left hand, I'm actually a midget. Left hand path or something, Imperius identifies as such a regularly threatens to kill people. Well, I disavow that. Let me tell you this. I've never personally talked to Imperius, and the way that he types is weird to me. I could give you some examples, but he uses a lot of purple prose, and he sounds more like a character at times than a real person. And when I've heard like the way he represents himself is as some kind of like nomadic warrior who could beat up people, but then you hear him talk to Kurt Doolittle, and he is like this soft, doubting voice, and he sounds insecure, and he doesn't sound like some Viking barbarian warrior that he seems to like represent himself as. So, definitely I don't know that guy, and I don't talk with that guy. And maybe if I did, maybe I would say, oh, well, yeah, he has a weird way of typing messages to people, but actually he's a normal guy. But he's never approached me. He's never tried to talk to me. Maybe it's because he thinks I am too dumb, which to be honest with you, most of the post-liberalists think I am dumb, rambly, incoherent. They don't think much of me, frankly. Not that I care, not that it's going to inhibit me from talking to people associated with them. But yeah, I'm not gonna like it. I'm not gonna defend someone I don't even know. I don't know him. I've never talked to him. So fair point, dude. But I'll talk to other people and I'll judge them by what they're saying. And I'm not going to say, well, there's this weird person who I don't know, who maybe is a Satanist, who you're friends with or you're associated with, or even if he's the leader of the group, I don't care. If someone at least, maybe with Kurt Doolittle, you can say he is advocating for violence, and therefore you're getting into gray legal territory with him. But so far, I haven't. I mean, once they start saying like, here's instructions on how to take down the U.S. power grid, it's really easy. Once they start putting out stuff like that, that's when I'm going to have to, disavow and move away. But Hector, I mean, I don't know. I think it's very strange that we talk about associating with people, but then these people, like I was led to these people. Who was I led to these people by? I don't know. There's just some like internal, there's like some depth to this situation. Like I feel everyone needs to self-evaluate and understand what's going on. Everything, this is very tiresome, tiresome e-drama, but I suppose it's coming at me, so here we go. Everything man-made is built with a purpose in mind. If this system accomplishes its goals, how can the system be false? Let's read that again. Everything man-made is built with a purpose. Okay. If the system accomplishes its goals, how can the system be false if it's built on objective falsehoods? Well, that's interesting questions. I am 6'4", or alternatively, I could be 5'4". If you bet $5, put that in the D-Live Lino. Throw me $5 in the Lino. Fair enough, but Joel, if you're not at least 6'6", women will never love you. It's possible. It's possible. I think the only way to know that is to come to the end of your life, because like many people marry believing in love, and then they end up divorcing. So you never know, right? I bet against Charles. Let's see. Women will never love me. Not basketball level height. There are short women who will love you, Brian. Don't worry about it. If you aren't below 5 foot, you cannot work in Santa's workshop. That is true. Portuguese minorities still live in Macau, but Matteo Ricci, the famous Jesuit priest in Ming era, died in Macau. Okay. Google fetal. Okay. Here we go, Hector. We are Googling a fecal transplant. Let's go. Stool transplant. Oh my goodness. This is not okay. Once considered to be last resort therapy by some medical professionals due to its unusual nature and invasiveness, potential risk of infection transmission, lack of Medicare coverage, there's been a move toward acceptance. Adverse effects, inflammatory bowel disease, donor selection. No laboratory standards have been agreed upon, so recommendations vary for size. A fresh stool is used to increase viability of bacteria. Samples are prepared within 6 to 8 hours. Sample is then diluted with saline sterile water or 4% milk. Some locations mix, oh, this is so gross, use a mortar or pestle, and others use a blender. This is so disgusting. This is so wrong. The concept of treating diseases with fecal matter originated in China millennia ago. Thank you, China. They use a thing called golden soup or golden syrup that contained fresh stool, which was drunk by the person. Fresh, warm camel feces has been recommended by the Bedouin. Wow. I don't know what to say. This is the thing that makes me say, like, I don't know. You think all the gross things are out there, and then they start talking about fecal transplants. And I don't know. I think I don't know, dude. They always make make some wood for the bottle. That would be good. Regurgitation is unfortunate. You're gonna make me regurgitate my lunch pretty soon. Oh God, Colt 45 malt liquors glass with aluminum cap. Yeah, I don't drink alcohol, or I have not in a while. So probably not something I'm gonna buy. I am a repurposer. Hypocrites are cringe. Corks are toxic. Recycle urine for clean water. Okay, thank you, William. True liberalism has never been tried. The internet is cringe and feminine. No one speaks IRL to others like they do online. That's true. No one would ever walk up to me and be like, you're with Satanists. No one would ever say that. No one who attacks me on the internet would ever attack me in real life. Pretty much guarantee that. And vice versa as well. What's your fascination with executing people? I don't think I have a fascination with executing people. Where have I talked about that? And please don't accuse me of violating the TOS. Thanks, Brian. Do you think character is relevant in determining whose ideas to engage with, especially when considering time and effort are finite? Yes. I think it is relevant. That's why I discounted Nietzsche, because I judged him by the character of the people who followed him. So I ignored him and didn't read him. But also I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to read people's arguments and have a good grasp of if they have something important to say or not. So that is the point I am getting, where I don't need to make these prejudicial arguments about, oh, their character is bad, I don't need to read them. I can actually read a page of what they're saying and make a judgment if there's something interesting here. So I'm now judging people by their fruits, by what they say, rather than some zany label like a Satanist. You yourself, Hector, have said that you like Richard, and Richard openly has a Satanist girlfriend. Do you consider that to be like Hindu and stuff? So I don't know. Do you want to throw him out? Have you changed? Because the last time I talked to you, you said you were sympathetic toward the guy. You felt he was a cool guy. Have you changed your mind on that? Is he a bad guy now? Is he a Satanist? Yeah, it is hard to read tone through text. So often, I do take things in an accusatory and judgmental way, especially, it's difficult. So, I acknowledge that I probably read more animosity into things than actually exists. Do you think internet gossip is a good way to gauge character? Well, that's really all this is. This entire stream has been internet gossip, right? There's fuel for everybody involved. There's fuel for the post-liberalists to hate me for not being sympathetic enough or defending them. There's fuel for people who hate the post-liberalists to attack me for being too sympathetic to them. Of course, I am always true neutral. I am, of course, a radical centrist. Amazing Atheist Banana. He hurt Nutella stock. I'll never forgive him. Amazing. Kenneth eats people on a regular basis. And I'm not proud of it, and I don't talk about it. Yeah, that's my vice, and I'm not gonna confirm that because I feel deeply guilty about it. I cannot conceptualize Ken as anything other than vice-free. Yeah, there's a phenomenon by which when you don't know things about a person, you project purity upon them. When you have a blank slate, you meet someone for the first time, oh, I assume he's a nice guy. But everyone's got problems, dude, so... Kenneth broke his ascetic Ubermensch persona with his first stream. I'm sure the writers of the Vedas were innocent babies. I mean, they were probably pretty moral people in a lot of ways, although they were also warriors, 33 viewers. Yeah, we only have 13 thumbs up, though, so pull-ups aren't easy. Yeah, when you actually try to do pull-ups with good form, like you're not kicking yourself up, you're not using momentum or inertia, it's actually pretty difficult. Like it's not as easy as doing a bench press or something. LaVeyan Satanism is just Max Stirner, Ragnar Redbeard, egoist anarchism dressed up as a parody of Christianity. It's not an occult tradition. Its full origin lies with those two authors. I agree with you, which is why I would point people toward Order of Nine Angles, which is really just paganism. Basically, I don't think Satanism exists, and I think it's silly to have a satanic panic. I think we should refer to things by their real name, which is why I call LaVeyan Satanism is hedonism, and Order of Nine Angles is really just paganism, or a certain interpretation thereof. It's a left-hand path paganism. Kenneth is anti-cardio, indeed. Best pull-ups are the ones you buy at the store for incontinence. Why is the stream so brown-pilled tonight? So poop-pilled in here. I've seen really skinny guys who can do endless pull-ups and muscular dudes who can't even do one without assistance. It's very true. Are we having the meetup in the woods, on the train, or in front of it? I'm going to choose in the woods. Volume training is legit, Kenneth. If you can't do 40 push-ups to cadence, then you're not fit. Well, it says a guy named Bulkington. Yeah, we can't all be Mr. Bulkington. For every push, do 2 pulls. A good idea. Running for cognitive benefits, brain exploding, Discord hath a devil. In a woods, Discord is my chord. When I made jokes about porn, I don't deny. When have I made jokes about porn? I don't know. I've just seen a ton of that. Some of the things that have been sent to me, like who is like watching porn right now? Like I've seen too much of that. I'm very surprised you don't remember doing that. Remember to press the like button, folks. Smash that lickety like button. Indeed. Smickety smack that lickety like button. Kenneth doesn't associate with incels. He just wants to help people and sits with the weird kids. I think I do associate with incels. I think we're all incels. I embrace my incel identity. Married people are the true incels, if you think about it. Can't maintain a consistent online avatar even if I tried. Sorry for making jokes on Discord, though. I mean, yeah. The Ring of Gyges is Satanism. Changing your avatar is Satanism. So, as far as I'm concerned, people who don't show their face are all Satanists. I like this stream. The one pure soul wandering through dozens of Discords we have to stand. Can definitely have Sandhides lean directly into camera while doing a silly voice, scrunching up his face thing. What happened is Sam still makes content on Gumroad, still running Gumroad scam. Can't keep getting away with it. All true. I'm Warrior Cast Master Poet because I can pick up a piece of metal and put it down. True, Sela. This is the best take on Imperius. Imperius sounds like another character from Bap Gang. Like, I don't know the guy. All I know is that he talks about being a Bedouin warrior, a Mongol warrior. He talks about being a Viking warrior. And I've never seen the dude's face. And he talks about beating people up on Twitter, and he talks a big game, but he's afraid to show his face. And I respect people if you have a job and you can't afford to show your face. I mean, if that's the case, if he's has some big wig job and he can't show his face, and that's the explanation, then I respect that. But otherwise, yeah, it seems Bappish. Let's see. Bap actually lifts. Yeah, his people who follow him do lift, but that's not the most important thing to me. Imperius is one of the post-liberalist neo-absolutists. I can pick up. I mean, to me, I'm not really into GA, and I think that GA has significant problems. And I think the more we engage with GA, the more we're going to find out that it's not that everything GA says is a lie, but that there's severe problems with it. And the fetishization of GA is not the best way to go, to say the least. So that's the differentiation I'd make there, is that he seems really tied to GA as a dogma. And I don't agree with that. But again, I've never spoken to him. I've never given him a chance to discuss it with me or debate it with me. So I'm like, I can't really make a determination with the guy. Obviously, he doesn't think I'm important enough to reach out to me or talk to me. He's had plenty of opportunities to do so, but maybe he just thinks I'm dumb. The way I perceive it, I think most of the post-liberalists look at me as like it's like the kid who can't quite make the baseball team. Like he's just a little bit too out of shape. And then Joel Davis is like the coach, and he like lets him on the team anyway. And all the other team members are like, "What are you doing, Joel? He doesn't get it. He's not smart enough." And Joel's like, "Give him some time. He'll get there. Don't worry. He just needs a little encouragement or something." So I think that's the internal dynamic, which I just think is funny. It doesn't really bother me. I can pick up Noctua heat sinks. That's pure copper, aluminum heat pipes. I have no clue what you're talking about. Kurt Doolittle is, yeah, okay. Talk is kind of ridiculous, especially they live in Ukraine. Literally called Doolittle. Okay, interesting. Can't get enough of, oh my goodness. Yeah, that's a good catchphrase. Fecal transplant can be a life-saving procedure. Look, modern medicine is it saves the human life, but it kills the soul, my friend. Poop soup, golden soup. Poopity scoop. That's my favorite Kanye song, by the way. Doesn't use the Lord in vain. Based. Chinese medicinal practice is incredible. It really speaks to the character of the people. Google Virgin. Google Virgin Boy P eggs. All right, here we go. Bulkington, Virgin Boy eggs. A traditional dish in which eggs are boiled in the urine of young boys. Learning new things. I'm so glad that this is what the chat. We've got gossip, we've got e-drama, we've got gossip, and we've got fecal transplants, and we've got Virgin Boy P eggs. Thank you so much, chat. This is what I asked for. This is what I signed up for, right? What's your favorite fast food? I've had some good fast food in my time. I don't know. I generally go for something that's chicken because it's less abusive on the stomach than the beef products and hot dogs and things like that. So I'd go for like some chicken tenders or something, or a salad. You can generally get like a salad at McDonald's. Subway, I agree with Sela. Subway is pretty good. Of the fast food chains, it's probably the best because they actually make it in front of you. You can like see it. I'll get like some plain, or I'll get like the wheat bread or whatever it is. What is it called? 9-grain wheat bread or something. I'll get that. And then I'll get like, throw some turkey on there, whatever they have. And then I'll throw like some spinach. You get some bell peppers, green peppers, just throw some stuff on there. And they'll be like, "Do you want any like mayonnaise, mustard?" I'm like, "No, I don't want any of that." And then they're about to cut it. And I'm like, "Don't cut it." And they're like, "Okay." And then they cut it because they're trained every time to cut the sandwich in half. I don't want you to cut the sandwich in half. I want to eat it like a popsicle or something. I want to peel off the paper and just eat it. Because if you break it in half, then I actually have to touch the bread. And what if my hands are dirty? Like I was just digging around in the garage with the oils and stuff. I don't want to touch it. I'm a secret germaphobe. That's one of my vices. So I don't want to touch that part. Kenneth is the destroyer of worlds. He is Vishnu come again. We got a W in the chat. Where's my water at? Give me a second here. Brian is a fictional character. No water left there. Do I have another one? Yes, I do. broccoli or spinach? Let me say broccoli. I'm going to say broccoli. Spinach is good too, though. Would it be inaccurate to describe certain Gnostic traditions as Satanism, those that identify Christ as the incarnation of Lucifer? I don't know. Depends who you ask. Spinach is functionally a steroid. Broccoli is also a functional steroid. Garbage. Spinach and broccoli. Brian's avatar is his actual face. It actually used to be back in the day before the Pepe. Carrots are very good. You should eat some right now. I don't have any in the house, unfortunately. Eat meat and eggs. It's not rocket science. If you think there's anything nutritious or vital in a bitter leaf, that's not true. Joel is less GA dogmatic. I like him more. That seems reasonable. Who cares? You can be on our baseball team. Thank you, Safara. Yeah, it is hip. We literally got Ken to say poop on his stream. So much potty humor. Clean, yeah. I hope you are entertained. What is wrong with Chinese medicine? Nothing is wrong with Chinese medicine. Having your gut colonized with someone else's gut bacteria is not the kind of degenerative treatment like gastric bands or chemotherapy. It's genuinely good and non-invasive. Okay, maybe I just need to get used to it. I don't know, get why you're so perturbed by anything I've said, but then maybe it doesn't matter. Yeah, it probably doesn't matter, Hector. It probably doesn't matter. I just feel like I'm being attacked as immoral. Like I said, like, why are you hanging out with Satanists? Does that mean you're a Satanist? So I'm just defending myself against perceived attacks, but maybe I should just ignore it. Kenneth is the 4chan tendies meme. True, tendies, please. Form of the burrito is superior to that of the sandwich. TCM is fine for psychosomatic illness. Don't know what that is. Oh, traditional Chinese medicine. Okay, thanks for explaining that. TCM is trad. Thanks for the stream. Okay, well, thank you for saying that, Staff of Raw. This is a good place to stop the stream, so I'm going to stop OBS now. Stop streaming in OBS, and then we're going to go over to YouTube. I feel guilty every time Ken has a stream. Yeah, same. I don't know why you said that. I don't know why I said that, but we both did. Oh, geez. Well, why does everyone feel guilty? Now I feel even more guilty. We're going to have to discuss this. We're going to have a group therapy session, guys. Oh, geez. Ken about to go blankie mode. True. I need to go blankie mode. It's past my blankie time. Got to wake up early tomorrow. Yep. All right. Well, we're going to slowly give everybody a chance to say same, goodbye. Going to check in, see the notifications. December aghast. I found a formula to find quarks. Twitter is funny. I'm just slumber party stream. Go to worky. What's your sleep routine? Generally, I like fall asleep. Do the next stream with the blankie. Yeah, we could do that. All right. See you then. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.